I'm Scott Allen Miller. It is Thursday night, and that means we are live from Leon, Nicaragua. Today we have the Volcano Concepcion on the island of Ometepe, currently blowing its top with an ash plume going to 18,000 feet, and that ash moving northwest, which means it is heading roughly towards probably south of Granada, but heading kind of that general direction. So we don't know if it's going to hit like Jinotepe a little bit more west or Granada a little bit more north. That is the direction it's going. If it continues in that way for a long period of time, it will get to Managua and potentially up here to Leon. And I do have news coming in as we speak, so I'm going to do my best to keep you guys up to date on all of that. That is the big news going on. A lot of people were reporting that the Volcan Messiah had blown, and the reason for this is because there was a, not a news source, but a website or Facebook group or something in the city of Messiah, or with the name from the city of Messiah. It looked like it was taking pictures from the city of Messiah, and they were reporting and showing pictures of the eruption from that place, which is quite some distance away. The Volcan Messiah is not in Messiah, nor is it on Ometepe. The Volcan Messiah is a volcano in Managua itself, on the east side towards Messiah, but not actually in Messiah. I know that's very confusing. The Lago Messiah, the lake formed on the slopes of the Volcano Messiah, that is in Messiah. And the city of Messiah is in Messiah. But the Volcan Messiah is actually in Managua. If that were to erupt, we would expect a major humanitarian disaster, but it is also not a stratovolcano, so we don't expect it to erupt in that way. But people, for some reason, recently have been talking about Messiah a lot in a way where they're kind of anticipating something to happen, and that's not expected at all. Some bits of the crater fell in, it splashed, it did a thing, like whatever, not a big deal. It is closed currently, but not for any major thing. However, it could be connected. This is part of the same geologic system, geohydrologic, whatever, system. And so when one is about to erupt, it will often affect others. And so there's probably some rumbling going on at Messiah, but it is not the big thing like we're seeing here. Nothing like this at all. So this is a really big special event. Now typically we see eruptions from Concepcion every 5 years on average. It's had 26 eruptions since 1883, depending on your definition of eruption and so forth. Like, it's not always an agreed upon thing, but it has been roughly 14 years since a real eruption has happened here, so that's a lot longer than normal, nearly triple. So the amount of pressure that is anticipated to be built up in the volcano is relatively high, and so there's every possibility that this is going to be a much larger eruption than it normally does, which of course is potentially disastrous, as that comes down on the island of Ometepe, can come down on San Jorge and Rivas in that region, and of course now with the plume as high as it is, it could be moving in the general direction of the major population areas. However, keep in mind it is some distance away, so if you're getting that long distance fallout, it's probably not going to be that bad, right? We're talking about ash that's way up in the air, be inconvenient. We're in a heavy rain. I don't know if you can hear it right now. We have a heavy rain behind us, and definitely jump in and say hi, guys. We're just getting going with the stream, and I wanted to get some of this news out there for people who are watching it when the stream gets set up for rewatching. But that's the current news going on that everyone's talking about and interested in, and what we know about it, which is not a ton, but it is something. So happy Thursday night. We are here in Leon, Nicaragua. I'm looking forward to you guys getting on, saying hi. Let's see who's here, and let's get this ball rolling. Good night, everybody. We're not going to do a 5-hour tonight. Just going to preface that, which people who are watching this later will know we're not going to do a 5-hour, because that's just ridiculous. But my kids, normally when I'm doing these live streams, dinner ended up getting made minutes before the live stream, and I can't eat, and it's always terrible. This time my youngest daughter is making baked mac and cheese, and she's just working on grating the cheese now, so the food won't be ready for a good long time. I get to eat at the end of the stream instead of at the beginning. And I'm getting people sending me pictures of the volcano right now. So there's just news pouring in, because everybody's interested in what's going on with this. This is very, very big news, because volcanoes erupting here in Nicaragua is a very normal thing. We're used to it, but we also know that we need to keep on top of what's happening, especially if it's something like Concepcion, because this can happen in it's on the island, and so it's very plausible for people to be in a situation where they're trapped on the island. They could be looking at lava flows. They could be looking at a dangerous amount of ash. They could be looking at a lot of gas, and they're potentially trapped on the island. The ferry cannot get the population off in any fast manner, and so moving people around the island is potentially what has to be done. The island with Concepcion is the main populated island of the portion of the island. We think of it as two islands. We call it Ometepe, and it is one island, but it's two volcanoes, and they kind of come together in the middle with a narrow point, and it's the major one with all the people on it is the one that erupted. The other one is dormant, so we don't have to worry about that one. But we have a huge rain going on up here in Leon, which is good. It helps take the ash out of the air, but it's bad because it means that the ash is going to come straight down if it's raining in Managua. They're going to be dealing with that. Nika Man, how's it going? First one on with the comments. Coming to Leon next month, and he can't wait. That is awesome. Looking forward to having you here. That'll be very cool. And I have forgotten to send out all of my live stream links to all the people that should be watching now. And I really need to get on top of having a mailing list for this. And I know you guys have said that you wanted to have a mailing list and asked me to do it, and I just have not gotten around to that, and I apologize. That would be awfully cool. I want to have that, and it takes time to figure out how I want to do it, look into it, and it is what it is, so I apologize. But I will get to that at some point. It'll be super cool, and we will have a lot of fun with it, and it'll make it easier for you guys to join, because that's the thing, getting the news out. I put out the shorts as best as I can, and I try to do this at around the same time on a Thursday so that you guys can kind of anticipate what's going on, but it is difficult to get the news out in a timely manner, and there's probably some way to have a schedule on YouTube, but I honestly don't know how that works. So yeah, I don't really know. Something to investigate. Is it a good time to visit Nicaragua in June? From Adam. Yeah, June is quite good as long as you are aware that it's the rainy season, right? And now, like I say every time someone asks this, some people prefer the dry season, some people prefer the rainy season, and that is about the entire decision. The rainy season is the less popular of the two. It is fewer tourists, which is generally a good thing for most people, and it is there's fewer hotels are booked, but you have this potential disruption to your day. It's very easy to end up with rain in the middle of, you want to do something, you want to go out to eat, you want to go do a thing. Oh, and the big storm, there's thunder. And that can be a little bit of a problem, just because you aren't able to just go out and do whatever schedule you want at any time. Playing it by ear last second can be problematic. So that's the negative. The positive is that Central American rains are epic and cool. I love them. And if you're not just grabbing a tonya and sitting out on a hammock with just away from the rain coming down and getting that mist and everything, then have you really done Central America? So it goes both ways, whether you want to do that or not. But the average person leans towards coming down in the dry season, but I prefer the rainy myself. Larry says, I was in Playa Santa Maria with my quad last weekend. Had a great time. You need to do some videos there. Where is Playa Santa Maria? Let me check as he checks the map. For those who do not know, we actually have beach videos coming out tomorrow. I'm going to announce this again, probably a few times actually throughout this particular. Is that where Rancho Santana is? We just all call it Rancho Santana, but it obviously has a real name. Yes, that's where that is. Yes, down where the rich people go. Tomorrow we are going to be doing, for the first time ever, so this is actually pretty cool, I think. We're doing a theme day, and we have a lot of content coming out. And I actually don't have the final major video done yet, but all the footage is recorded. I'm just editing it, hoping to make it better than the average video. pretty sure it will be. Because the bar is low, right, guys? 20 kilometers past Chinandega. No, not the same place I was thinking. North of Chinandega. So it's one of the El Viejo beaches. Not going Plan Playa, heading there to look for a few terrenos to talk to the owner and not get gringo priced. Oh, very cool. And I do want to say one of our viewers bought a house here today. Won't go into details until it's all final. Hopefully, going to get an interview with them, so we can bring you guys some information about it. Because I don't even know the details yet, but I'm hoping we got really good details and we'll be able to put it on the show. That'll be really cool. So many people, for obvious reasons, really appreciate when we do actual. Here's someone who bought a place and what they paid and how it went and what they did. Things. That's a pretty big deal. So tomorrow, what we're doing is we actually have, so some days I do an early video as like an extra. So I'm doing a tools video, which is like how to validate Nicaraguan sources, which is a pretty long one, but that's early morning and it's not the daily. So that's coming out in the morning and hopefully going to generate a little bit just traffic for the day, get kind of the ball rolling. Shortly after that, we have a Drive Warp episode. So for those of you who are not subscribed to Drive Warp, go subscribe to Drive Warp. We are going to do, it's a little bit different shot tomorrow. It's shot on the Insta360 X3, and I think it turned out really cool, so let me know. I want some feedback. And we're going to do the drive from the main road of Salinas Grandes out to Playa Tesoro, all the way to the playa. So you can see the entire drive and get a feel for what it's like, which is useful. So that's going to be cool. It's just going to be fun. It just plays music, so just put it on the big screen and listen to it as it plays music. That'll be fun. Then later in the afternoon, we're doing a Nicaragua 360 episode that is shot at Playa Tesoro, where we just put the 360 camera up on the beach, and you can just, it's like 3.5 minutes long, and you can just look around the beach and see exactly what the middle of the Playa Tesoro beach looks like. That should be really cool. And then at 4 o'clock, the one I'm editing yet, but should be ready, is we're doing a full interview and a small tour of one of the houses at Playa Tesoro. So we've got Jeff, who is one of the people building the Playa Tesoro infrastructure and everything out there. We sit down and do an actual interview and talk a little bit about his history and what they're doing at Playa Tesoro, and just get you guys some information about that. And then we show a little bit of the beach and stuff. So we don't normally do interviews on here, so that's really cool that we're doing that. That should be awesome. So tomorrow's going to be huge with 2 videos coming out, 2 main videos, each pushing an hour on the main channel, plus the 2 other primary side channels are both putting out new videos, and those are uploaded and scheduled and everything. So hopefully they have no problem. And in the early morning video is already uploaded and scheduled. So only the last one of the day that I have to get the final edits done on. So that's what's going on tomorrow. And then of course regular news updates on the shorts throughout the day. Most likely going to be continuing, especially with the volcano going off. That's going to keep. That keeps us very busy. When there's storms and volcanoes and stuff, people are like, "What's going on? We want to see stuff." And there's not a lot of information out there about the volcano, and so many people think it's in a completely different part of the country and a completely different volcano doing a totally different thing. That's pretty important to have that clarity on there. Elvis Gonzalez is here. How you doing? He said you should probably do restaurant ratings in Nicaragua. I should. That's true. There's the thing about that is that there are people who do that and do a really good job, and most of them eat meat. I do not eat meat, and I'm a restaurateur. And so if I do my own restaurant, that would be disingenuous. If I skip my own restaurant, that would make myself angry at myself for not giving my own restaurant a fair shake. But I don't eat meat, and so the main thing that people eat, I don't eat. And so I should have a website for doing reviews, yes, but I should probably not actually do the reviews. As much as that would be really cool, and I would love to do that. But there are some really good people who do that, as you can imagine, mostly on Instagram, but some are on YouTube. But like 2 Girls Who Like to Eat Nicaragua is a pretty good channel, and some others. And I've been out, because I do like restaurant introductions, and I've run into some pretty big food vloggers when I'm there. It's pretty cool. They're like at the table next to me, and I'll be with Marcella, and she's very brave, and she knows all the like Spanish language shows in the country. I tend to I know a few, but I don't watch that many in Spanish. And she'll be like, "That's so and so," and then she'll go over and talk to them, and they'll be like, "Hey," and we'll say hi or whatever. But that's not super common Which restaurant is mine? Would have loved to have gone while I was there. We generally keep that a secret. And they've changed. The one that we owned for a really long time, we do not have anymore. We now actually have a steakhouse, believe it or not, says the guy who doesn't eat meat. Nika Man says, hey Scott, how much do you like Gallo Pinto, fan or not? I actually like Gallo Pinto quite a bit. I do not eat Gallo Pinto every day. I'm not one of those people. I can, if you give me Gallo Pinto every day, I will eat it for sure, but I don't go out and seek Gallo Pinto that often, maybe like once a week. But if I'm not in Nicaragua, which I try to be all the time, but if I'm not for some reason, after a little bit, I'll be like, oh, I haven't had Gallo Pinto in a while. So I was at the beach 2 days ago, and while I was at a restaurant, not my restaurant, I was just at a restaurant on the beach. I was getting breakfast, and of course I ordered Gallo Pinto. So that, yes, I do fairly regularly. I tend to eat a very típico. And for those who don't know what a típico is, well, first of all, if you don't know what Gallo Pinto is the local Nicaraguan and Costa Rican rice and beans dish that is generally done with breakfast. You can get it all throughout the day. If you go to barbecue places, you go to fritangas, they're going to have Gallo Pinto always. This is your starch, right? And it's a very proteiny starch. It's very healthy, more or less. And it's got a good flavor. Well, it depends who makes it, but in general has a good flavor. It's got a lot of Lenzano in it. So that's Gallo Pinto. Then a traditional típico, which is the breakfast, is going to normally be, in everywhere that I've lived, is going to be eggs, Gallo Pinto, cheese of some nature, and then often Maduro, which is not bananas, but plantains, but mature plantains, which are a lot more like bananas, and then they're cooked on the grill, so they're a little bit more like caramelized bananas. They're still not as sweet as bananas, but they're decently sweet, but they're really soft because they've been caramelized and they're really mature. So it's a different experience than bananas for sure, but if you casually ate them, you might be like, bananas? Did I have bananas? I think I had bananas. But I like that a lot. I like, specifically, I really like queso frito with breakfast. I am a huge fan of traditional Nicaraguan fried cheese. That is amazing, because so the cheese here, we often refer to it as squeaky cheese. Comes in about 69 major varieties, and every town has a slightly different cheese, and you end up with this huge variety of relatively similar cheeses. And some of them are very pungent, some of them are very salty, some are very squeaky. When you bite it, it's like against your teeth. It's weird. I can eat nearly any cheese that Nicaragua makes. It's very rare that I get a cheese that I'm like, I'm going to pass. But when they're good, right, I'm talking the bad ones, I'm like, whatever, I'll just eat it. But a good one is so good, and it's hard if you're not my style, I guess, but if you haven't had a really good Nicaraguan cheese, then you're probably like, really? I've had, it's edible, but if you get a really good one, especially if it's fried, it is so delicious. You don't put it in anything, you just eat the cheese. Seriously, they get so good when you get a really good one. That's the holy grail of Nicas. Haven't met a Nica that doesn't like Gallo Pinto. I mean, it's the staple. It's what everyone eats. TJ says, Scott, could you tell me more about your relocation services? Yeah, sure. So what we have is Relocation Nicaragua, and it's a very casual service. We're not super formal at this point, although we've been doing it for a couple of years, and we have worked with a lot of people to move them here, but it tends to be very ad hoc. We start with what we don't do. We do not do real estate. We are not real estate people. We don't sell anything. We don't do anything of the sort. We don't do showings. We used to. We tried that. Doing showings as a non-real estate agent is doable, but it's very difficult, and there are legal liabilities that would make it so expensive to do that it wouldn't be practical. And so it just doesn't make sense. What we do for relocation services is we provide a couple things. One is we provide advisory services, and this is really kind of our bread and butter. So the biggest thing is one-on-one consulting. If you want to get on the phone, of course you can come on the live stream and ask questions. We do this all the time, and some people want to be able to talk to me and have like a real. So what we do right now is 10. We're going to take this up to 12 pretty soon, but just 10 coffees for an hour. Typically we run over. One of the reasons why it needs to be 12. The buymeacoffee.com thing, we do that, and then we do like an hour consultation, like on the phone. You can do as long as you want, of course, and talk about answer whatever questions you have. That's real. A lot of people do that because it's just, it's kind of like, I was going to sponsor the channel, but this way I get a phone call, right? Like, cool. So that's awesome. We love doing that. It's great to get to talk to you guys one-on-one. The big thing that we like to do, that we love to do, this is expensive, if you want to come down and really spend some time with me and the team, which is generally me and Marcella, but it depends, but almost always it's going to be us. The thing that we really like doing is custom tours. And of course, these can be customized a couple different ways, but the big thing that we really, that makes us valuable to you in most cases is if you don't know really where you want to live or what lifestyle is going to be like, we can take you around, whether it's a large area like, hey, let's take you around the country, or it could be a small area like, I know I want to be in Managua, but where, right? And we can take you around, whether it's like for a day or for a week, and like really investigate those places and be like, okay, now you've seen this, but we're going to try this other side of the city, totally different vibe. Let's go get a hostel. Let's go get a hotel. Let's go to a restaurant. Let's go to and like do a bunch of things and be like, here's what your neighborhood would be like. Here's what your nightlife would be like. Here's what your grocery shopping would be like if this is where you lived, and help you really hone that. So in some cases, and this is super fun, we had a couple come down and they wanted to investigate like the coast, which is way too much. But they started in San Juan del Sur and we're like, seriously? You want to do that and the rest of the coast? Like, okay. So much work, but we drove all over the coast, went to different cities all over, and we're like, here's what houses would be like here. Here's what this beach would be like here. And went through a bunch of really high-level decisions over a really big area, and we were driving them, right? So we're providing the car. And those kinds of custom tours where it's not, if you want to pay us to go do sightseeing in the country, like great, I'll bring a camera, let's go have fun doing sightseeing, like that's okay, but there's ways to do that without hiring me. But if you want to come and do tours where we're focused on helping you make relocation decisions, that is absolutely one, I think, where we're super valuable. I think we rock that. And two, I think it's fun. Like this is a really cool thing to do that very few people do. And I've talked to relocation like companies in other countries, and they're like, almost no one does this anywhere, and absolutely no one does this in Nicaragua. Costa Rica, yes, it does exist in Costa Rica, but they're like the rest of the region, like country after country in every direction, you basically can't find it. So it's relatively unique, and we do want to expand it into especially the CA4 and Belize because we just have connections there, and Panama because history there. Costa Rica we don't want to touch because everyone does it, and potentially like Bolivia because we have expertise there as well. But here we do it, and so some of the cool things that we could do is like, oh, let's go stay in, I always use this as an example, Ciudad Sandino or El Crucero or Jinotega or Jinotepe or a smaller place, Dolores, right? And be like, okay, based on the things that you think you want, the lifestyle you think you want, the size of environment you think you want, let's go stay in some example places like that, and let's go get a feel for what your life would be like there so you can make really useful decisions. And that's, I don't think that kind of information, that kind of guidance is available out there to give you okay, so here's what the kind of budget I would like to have. What kind of house could I get? How could I furnish it? What could I do for internet and all those different kinds of things? A lot of that's real quick and easy, right? But then be like, okay, so this neighborhood, what would that create as a lifestyle? Okay, so this is my grocery store. Cool, this would be my weekly shopping experience. Got it. Now you can build that in your head. And what would my restaurant selection be like? Okay, let's go to the local pizza place. Let's go to the local burger place. Let's go to the local Nica Fritanga or whatever, like the big one. What's my takeout? Does Petitos Jaw come here? Let's try those things out. Things you can't necessarily do on your own because you don't have the accounts, you don't have the experience on that. Whatever. All right, I wanted to take a breath because I saw that it just did an ad insert. I have no idea if I actually take a breath at the right time or not because I can't see it. I don't see the ads. So that's, I think that kind of like touring thing is really big. Then once you make decisions, and we can help on any stage, right, except for actually looking at a house, which again, I don't recommend you get in most cases anyway, but we can help with that. Like, okay, here's what's going on. It's kind of like business consulting with relocation a little bit, and that's what I do. Normally I consult with big companies on all kinds of things. And then once you make the decision and you're like, okay, I'm moving down, then we can provide services. And some of the things we have done is, and like this is where I kind of bow out because I don't really add very much expertise, is Marcella or her team can take you actually shopping, normally just be her, like we're tiny, and go to, she can take you to the big stores. Okay, let's go to the mall, find the things you need. Okay, let's go to the little plazas, let's find the things you need. Okay, let's go to the market and get some deals on stuff. All right, let's go to like the little local places, like here in Nicaragua. No, here in Leon, it might take you to Mendoza instead of Gallo Mas Gallo, right? But can also introduce you to all those stores and introduce you to all the different grocery stores and all those kinds of things. And so she'll actually go in person and do that at much lower cost than doing a tour, right? Because it's just her and you're just like taking taxis together or whatever. And she can help you buy your appliances. She can help you get them delivered. She can deal with, making sure that they give you the right receipts or that you're going to the right places or that it's shipping to the right places. All those kinds of things she can handle for you. And of course we have, now this we don't do internally. We have legal services. We just hand you off to a law firm that we trust. If you want to use them, feel free to use anyone you want. But there are those services. So you're not left out in a lurch where you're like, oh, but now what do I do? Because there are things that you want them for, even if it's just signing a lease. You want to have someone that looks over that stuff because we know people from the channel who signed a lease without a lawyer and got into huge problems. Little things like that. So those are kind of the big things that we do, but depending on what you're looking for, just let us know. We potentially can do all kinds of stuff. Matagalpa Fresh Guajada is epic. It is. I do like Matagalpa Guajada. Try some casillos. Yeah, come on. I eat a lot of casillos. In fact, there's a really good new, I've heard it's good. I actually haven't made it, so I'm bummed. Walking distance from my place is a brand new casillo place that is packed all the time. Casillos are not big in Central Leon. They're big in the outskirts, like Nagarote and La Paz Centro. So I go up there, I've got a place in Nagarote where I go to eat casillos. I love casillos. But supposedly there's a place that's quite good, walking distance away. We're going to go film it and show it to you guys. We drive past it all the time. And we're like, oh, why didn't we get casillos? But it's new. How it's new and has so many people, I have no idea, because it's in the middle of nowhere. Came running because Concepcion Volcano coughed today, big column of ash. Yeah, Matthias, we've been talking about that. I've got, I think, 4 posts or more up already about Concepcion because everybody thought it was Messiah. So that was. TJ says, the biggest issue for me is finding a short-term rental to stay in while I look for a house to rent. Yeah, that is the hardest thing. We can help with that a little bit, mostly in showing you areas to actually look at places. Like, we can walk around or take you around and help you look for places, but the thing this is bizarre, this actually becomes a legal issue, is you cannot call someone on behalf of someone without creating a legal issue. Believe it or not. I'm sure there's some way to do that, but you have to have a lawyer involved. Like, it's really expensive. It doesn't make any sense. So that's a problem. And this is a Nicaragua problem, that the people who want to help you are not necessarily allowed to in the one time that you really need them. That it's weird. It's like if they could tweak that legal system just for that one little thing, it could solve, I think, a lot of problems for people. But it doesn't, even if we could do that, the ability to go and find short-term rentals is still quite hard, which is why I want to really get into doing short-term rentals. I mean, I do have some, but very few. Nikki Man, hey Scott, question. Since you mentioned a good abogado you trust, I am sure, that's a lawyer, I am sure I will be buying a terreno, which is land, for a future house in Leon or Granada. Mind sharing the abogado you trust so I can check them out? Yeah, I can. Shoot me an email and I'll hook you up with them on WhatsApp. We turned someone over to them this morning. Today's show is brought to you by Pepsi. Pepsi Black, very hard to get in this market, and so we buy out the grocery store all the time. I don't actually like Pepsi Max that much. It's okay. I prefer Coke Zero, but I was really tired today. We had these. These are much cheaper, like 21 quart, and my wife accidentally opened one and didn't realize it had caffeine. Like, she just wasn't thinking. She opened it. She knows it has caffeine. She opened it late in the day and was like, oh no, I opened something with caffeine. Now it's mine, because I can have caffeine up until like 11 o'clock at night. We go out to Dr. Coffee, and I will get a 16-ounce cappuccino every time. And I will get them at closing, which is like 8:30. and I'll drink it, and it doesn't. I just go right to bed, no problem at all. If she has just anything, any little thing after like 3 p.m., she can't sleep all night. Like that's how different the caffeine affects us. I could have a giant cappuccino and go straight to bed without. It wouldn't even occur to me that the caffeine might do something to me. And I was really exhausted today. I managed to get about a 15-minute nap with the dog. For those who did not, the dog, I have 2 dogs, with the big dog, the one that sleeps with me all the time. For those who did not pay attention, look in the show notes. There's a link. I will pop it as well into the live stream conversation. But I was out doing an interview today. So this is a live interview on Facebook. I didn't know it was actually live. I thought it was going to be recorded. I knew where it was going. I just didn't realize it was live. And DJ, I actually don't know the price for retaining a lawyer. It has been so long since I just did a normal lawyer retention that I honestly don't know. It's not super expensive. That I know. It'll be hundreds of dollars. So we did this interview today. It's just 9 minutes. Don't go and leave the live stream to watch it, but do go open it in another tab and watch it and like it and share it all at the end. I get interviewed, and we're mostly talking about like safety and living in Leon, but we ride the public bus. We actually do the interview on the municipal bus, and a lot of people ask about the buses, and today happens to be a day that a new delivery of 250 buses arrived in the country. But this is one of the Russian buses that's been here about a year and a half, I want to say, here in Leon, and we've only gotten a little bit of chance to show them. We do have footage coming up on the channel where you really see the buses, but this was cool doing an interview actually on the bus, so definitely go check that out when you have a chance and let people know, because that really does, like, letting all the people that we do stuff with know that the audience we have here comes out and supports these other channels, these other shows that they do, is a really big deal. Brian says, "Hey Scott, I've been watching your videos for a long time. Great stuff. Glad to finally catch you live. My wife and I bought property in the Tesoro area. Look forward to catching up one day." Oh, Brian, are you the one that was like 2 houses down from where we were filming yesterday? Did you make it in time on this for me to say we're doing an all-day Tesoro episode tomorrow? So we have a main episode on the channel about Tesoro, but Drive Warp is doing the drive to Tesoro, and Nicaragua 360 is showing the beach at Tesoro. So tomorrow is Tesoro Day. That's so cool that you're there from Tesoro. Jeff told me that someone who watches the channel had just recently purchased near to where we were filming, but I don't think you were there when I was there a couple days ago. But that's super cool. Yeah, we definitely need to catch up sometime once John or Jeff are back, because they're not around at the moment. We're going to come down and do some more stuff at Tesoro. They want us to film like the river, the estuary, and some of the like adventure stuff, rather than we just filmed the beach and houses for those who are watching tomorrow. And the drive is crazy. But there's some really cool launches where you can just take boats out on the estuary and go check out some stuff and do some like outdoorsy fun activity stuff. So I'm going to try to get out and film some of that when we get a chance. So definitely going to try to be there. But yeah, let me know if you're going to be in Leon or whatever. We'll get together. All right. So what's everybody got going on this weekend? I have a huge party going on this weekend. That's where I'm going to be. You almost fell in, honey. The Caponera totally flipped forward and whacked me in the head. I really didn't come that close to falling, but I did get hit in the head by the Caponera, and people was it you that made the comment, "Hey, the guy in the back almost fell"? Yeah, that was me. I was holding 2 cameras, right? In my defense, I get out of Caponeras all the time, and normally you just put a foot in the back and then you step off. It's really easy. But I had 2 cameras and I had to kind of get off quickly and follow. I had no hand to like leverage anything, and so I stepped in front of the axle and the whole thing just whacked me in the head. Not a big deal. What prescriptions can you get over the counter compared to Canada? So just to be clear, I've never had to get prescriptions in Canada, so comparing it is going to be hard. But I am from the U.S., and so the answer in the U.S. is nothing. You can get nothing over the counter. Here in Nicaragua, you can get nearly anything over the counter. I have never encountered a prescription that required a doctor. They exist for sure. But by and large, pharmacies do not require a prescription for anything. Prescriptions are not the norm. I mean, you normally get one, right? You talk to a doctor, they tell you what to get, and then you go buy it. But you don't show them a prescription. The doctor just texts you and says, here, go buy this, and you go grab it or whatever. That's the norm, right? Or if you're in the hospital, they'll have their own pharmacy that sells it to you if you want. But it's really common to just send you out to get your own because the prices are cheaper. People like to do that. It's what people are used to. And if you live anywhere near civilization, Pharma Value has its own app with delivery. So you just go on the app and go, I would like this. And they show up at your house for like $1. So that's, especially for the extranjeros, that's typically what we do, except for me, I live really close to Pharmacy Row, and so as long as I'm not going super late at night when they've all closed, I have like 8 pharmacies. Like, I live in a small barrio. I mean, it's physically large, but the population of the barrio is not crazy. We're like maybe 100,000. We have a single spot with like 8 pharmacies, one right after another. All the other streets still have normal pharmacies. Like, they're still everywhere. Why we have 8 in a row, I have no idea. But it's epic. Like, you just need anything, and it's just boom, 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 boom. And Dr. Coffee, which is my coffee shop, was actually owned by a pharmacy. So there's a little tiny pharmacy, and then they have the coffee shop. So if we're there getting coffee and I need anything, I just pop over. It shares a register. And you just go, yeah, I just need this and that and whatever. And they just put it on my bill. And I don't even have to leave the coffee shop, which I'm at all the time anyway. So it's super easy. But yeah, in general, I have yet to encounter a medicine that required a prescription. Now, we're not out there trying to get like opioids. I assume that those require a prescription if you can even get whatever it is, right? Like, fentanyl is not going to be available. They're definitely not going to sell that. The U.S. sells quite a few things that would not be considered medicinal in other countries because they're made in the U.S. and they want to sell them. That's where the big money is. But most anything that you find legit. I mean, it could be like serious heart medications. It could be like, antidepressants. It could be painkillers. It can be any number. It's all just over the counter. So and it's not just available like in every small town. It's not just in the pharmacies. It's delivery. It's also like when you're in the airport, you can actually fly in, get off the plane, never go out of security, go up, go to a pharmacy that is by the gates. It's by the gate going to the U.S., get your medicine and get back on the plane. So there's people who fly in from the U.S. because a flight can be under $100, right, each way. So if you really, really, really hunt around, you can get a turnaround flight for, like, I say, $150 total. And if you're buying some medicine, I know people who've been like, oh, I could save, even if I got 1 month of medicine, I can save $200. Instead of going to my pharmacy in the U.S., just hop a plane, fly to Nicaragua, get off the plane, never enter Nicaragua, go to the pharmacy in the airport, get back on the plane, fly straight back to the United States. Good deal, saved hundreds of dollars. And then if you want to actually enter Nicaragua and do anything, free vacation, paid for by your medication. So that's a very common thing. Brian says, yep, that's me. Glad it all worked out. Looking forward to the videos. And yes, long, bumpy road. Yeah, it is a beautiful area, but man, being that separated, you're practically as separated from civilization as you would be if you were living on Ometepe, right? Like, it's just, that gets pretty crazy being out there. And I don't own a truck. I'm getting one, filing residency, hopefully here in the next couple days. I think we have all of our paperwork in a row now, and who knows how long it's going to take. So for those who don't know, you file your paperwork, and then sometime following that, they do a surprise interview, or they pop into your house and are like, hey, what do you do? How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. I'm guessing mine's going to be super easy because they can just watch my videos ad nauseum and know everything they could possibly want to know. So like most people, when they show up to those interviews, it's like, who are you? What do you do? What's your attitude, right? Like, they've got a lot to figure out. But with me, obviously, they already know pretty much everything they could possibly know about me before they show up. If they don't, they're being really lazy about it. And so, and we know that department knows, right? Like, we've had conversations with them. So it's not I'm not just guessing that they know. It's just, I think it's going to be pretty silly. But it is in Spanish. But you don't have to speak Spanish, but the interview's in Spanish. So if you don't speak Spanish, like I've heard, it's kind of, but I know people who really don't speak Spanish who've done it. So it's a common thing to have to deal with. I've never heard of anyone actually failing the interview. It's pretty informal. It's more like they want to make sure you're a real person. They want to see that you really live somewhere. They want to make sure that like really crazy things aren't happening. They're trying to weed out the serial killers and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the vibe of what they're working on when they're doing that. But I'm watching the video. Just no one's commenting, so it's my chance to do this. I have the monitor right here, and I really find sitting here ugly. I've been wanting to get curtains up, and I cannot get my team to put up curtains. I don't know why, of all things, that's so hard. But I have this set up like a studio, and it's just I can't use it as a studio when I'm filming myself. What I really need to do is get one of my team in here and run the studio from here and put me against the studio wall with the neon lights and all the cool stuff, and it'll look so much cooler than me with just my flip window wall with loose wires and stuff hanging where my curtain's supposed to be. Patricia's here. How you doing? Yes, the lava is here. That's the rumbling sound you hear outside. It's like there's like dinosaurs collapsing all over, and it's mayhem. It's as if the end of civilization is happening. But we're keeping the live stream going because that's how dedicated I am to you guys. You could put up curtains yourself. Now you're just being crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. Actually, the problem is I do have a green screen. Nika Man, that is true. I have one in the other room. I could put that up in lieu of curtains, and then it would be ugly green, or I could change the background. But I really hate fake backgrounds, and so I don't do that. What I want is this really expensive, custom-made wood wall, completely handmade Madura, for this purpose that I've not started using, with the neon sign I had made for this purpose, which I've for a year. I've had this ready. Oh, green screen with Las Pinitas in the background. Yes, then I can be like, it's the middle of the afternoon. I actually don't know how that works. So the green screen would be great. I didn't even think about this until I just said it. The green screen would be cool, except that I don't know that I can do green screen with the broadcast system. I have no idea if there's a green screen functionality on it. I'm looking right now. I don't know where it would be hiding. I'm using a broadcast board. So I think that would be handled by another loop that I don't have, because that's not stuff that I do. It would be cool, because then I could be like, oh, there's a map behind me. Boop. Oh, there's a picture of the storm behind me. Boop. There's a picture of the volcano. Boop. Like, that'd be really cool for sure. But I don't know how I would do it with the current setup without doing a bunch more complicated stuff, and ultimately it's a little bit gimmicky. So just nice curtains, and but really switching it around, setting it up, and using the studio wall. I think you guys will be like, whoa. Then I need to sit on a stool instead of, because I'm on my office chair, obviously my Radio Shack office chair, and it really is cool looking. Like you'll be like, yeah, that's cool. And I need to get like the tripod with the microphone right there. Like there's a little bit, but like we have all the stuff. It's just having someone to sit here and operate it, and then they can actually sit in the chair and watch me, and I'm looking at them, and everything points that way. And then they have the control board here, and they can respond to you, and I can have my laptop and respond to you, and like have all of it going at once. Like we could do, this can get really good, but I need a person sitting here to run it, and then we can have multiple cameras, because this camera can stay on generally, fingers crossed, knock on wood, the entire show, because it's the Fuji and it's awesome, right? If you're buying a camera and you're not buying a Fuji, what are you doing? They are so far and away the best cameras. But so it can go, but like we could add GoPros and stuff. Then they could turn them on and do like flip shots, but they can only run for so long. So there's a lot of cool stuff we could do, but I need a person, because I'm stretched to my limit just trying to make the show. Visa Core, good to see you too. KCS, I'm starting my residency soon and appreciate all the info. What was the most difficult part of applying for residency? None of it's hard, right? The only thing that was a pain is all the stuff in apostille that we had to get from the United States, because the U.S. took, I don't know, a year and a half to get us our paperwork. And then we had to fly there to get it in apostille because they didn't know how to do it, and like the whole thing was just insane. But it was just purely getting our U.S. paperwork. So everything in Nicaragua has been easy. I'm trying to think, like our biggest problem was that we delayed because of a medical issue, and everything we had, medical and Interpol, lapsed, and we had to go do it all again, which is just big pain in the butt, but it was just doing it again. It wasn't like hard. No, man, looking at the geckos through the windows eating mosquitoes and bugs is so Nika. It is, yeah. I'm on the Zoom tonight, so the background's a lot more in focus than it is when I'm using the Suris. Yeah, sometimes It's funny because I don't really notice it, but once in a while I look over and I see a gecko run by and eat something. It's kind of funny. Ian Otto is here. Hello, Scott. First time watching live. Welcome. My son was quite enamored with Leon and the beach that will remain unnamed. The beach that will remain unnamed? What has happened on the beach that makes it unnamed? Or do you not know the name? The potential names, if it's in Leon, are Ponoloya, Las Penitas, or Las Brasiles in the north, and that's if you're in the Leon beaches. And then, of course, there's Salinas Grandes and Tesoro in kind of the middle ground. And then you go down to Porto Sandino, Valero, Transito. I think Hermosa's in there. There's one or two others hidden in. Is it Miramar? Is part of that, and they're on the loop, and it's pretty cool. But it says, is the wood screen custom made? I'm looking to do the same. No, that's actually a metal screen, and I have no idea. It's been with the house probably for 50 years. It's not something that we put in. I don't worry about screens. I don't care. But we just didn't take them out, so I honestly don't know. But they're metal for sure. So I think they're just from somewhere. Oh, Las Penitas. Well, you can name that. That's where I live. Well, I live in the city, but that's where I have all my stuff. I'm there all the time. Las Penitas is the place to be. And now, for those who don't know, Las Penitas is rapidly rivaling, and for all I know, has now passed San Juan del Sur for the giant party. So San Juan del Sur is famous for Sunday Funday. They've been doing it for a long time, and they kind of originated it in the region, thanks to Naked Tiger. So they've got this big thing going on. But Bigfoot and El Simple now have Tuesday Booze Day here in Las Penitas in Leon, and it is because it's the city going out to the beach instead of just the beach village. It actually has the power to do a bigger event, and it is, at this point, epic. If you're interested in the massive backpacker parties that everyone says you can only do in San Juan del Sur, they are incorrect. I have been to both, and I went to the backpacker party in 2019 when it was supposed to still be quite big pre-COVID. It was not at its biggest like 2017. That was the biggest. But by 2019, it was still like world famous. It was going like there was no holding back the party. And the party now in Las Penitas every Tuesday is noticeably double, triple what San Juan del Sur is doing or has done traditionally for Sunday Fun Day. Now maybe it's been a little while since I've done Sunday Fun Day, but for years it's been nowhere close to what Las Penitas is doing every week. So if that's something you're interested in, which not very many of my people are, it is big, and interesting. They have a DJ every time. And if you go early, you can go at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm not sure, somewhere between 2 and 4. And the curtains. Oh yeah, I could get curtains made. That's true. My brain. If you go early, long before the Tuesday Booze Day party, there's live music for hours. So you can hang out and just listen to Ronnie and whoever's singing play. And the interview I did today, Camilo, who interviewed me, is one of the almost religiously on Tuesdays. He's there singing. So you can go see him and Ronnie and do a lot of traditional Nicaraguan music. And then they have guest singers. They do open mics. And it's a lot of fun. And that goes from 2 or 3 in the afternoon until 10, 11 at night. The music slows down. It kind of changes, shifts gears a little bit. But you can hang out and be pretty chill for this kind of party all evening, and then around between 10 and 11, the buses start showing up from the city, and then it gets completely insane. I was there the other night, and 3 busloads, not little buses, not shuttles, 3 of the big buses, the big chicken buses loaded to the gills, arrived from the city, and it was just hundreds and hundreds of people piling onto the beach. Very cool. Boy, you guys are quiet this week. What's going on? Oh my gosh, I hurt my back today. And by hurt my back today, I mean I'm old and I have a back today. I have no idea what happened. I did nothing in particular. I rode a bus, I rode in a taxi, I walked around for 5 minutes. I did nothing that should have caused back problems, and I can barely sit here. I have no idea what has happened. It's very strange. But Yeah, like I'm in significant pain, but it's just like muscular. It just feels like someone punched me in the kidneys, but it's very, very weird. Seriously, you guys are so quiet. Normally we get really talkative on our live nights. Sometimes you guys even talk to each other. We do have 27 people on. There's no excuse for being quiet. Hey, there we go. There's Jeff. Jeff! Hey! Wow, Scott, you're an endless energy dynamo. It's true. A live chat. Nice. Jeff from Playa Tesoro. So Jeff, who just popped on, is the Jeff of the interview that is coming out tomorrow. So definitely hop on so you can check out the interview with him. It should be a good one. Again, it's not fully edited yet, but I'm anticipating that I will edit it well, and it will be exciting. But it's cool, the whole thing that we're doing with all the different media and stuff throughout the day. It's going to be pretty cool. I'm confident in that. Oh, Adam said, do you go on TikTok? So I do technically have a TikTok account. Does that help? And I have at times been on it, but it was the caponera that messed up my back. Actually, that's possible, but that seems unlikely. It didn't hurt until I got back. I think it was the taxi ride. I think the taxi had no cushion in the back, and I was like squeezed in. It's the only thing that makes sense to me because it didn't hurt until I was back. I don't use TikTok. I find TikTok to hate me. I'm completely in support of TikTok. Like, no one should be banning TikTok. I just think no one should be using TikTok. I do not enjoy it. The thing that I find is that anything that TikTok tries to do, I find that YouTube does best and Instagram does second best and TikTok does worst. I don't like how it delivers content, and its algorithm is designed to drive me mad if I stay on it. So I get on and it shows me videos that I hate and make me not want to look at it. And then they're not like political where it's like, oh, this makes me angry and I don't want to see it. Not like that. I mean, it's like, here's just really stupid people dancing to the same thing. Like, they're nice people, I'm sure. I'm sure someone likes seeing them dance. I don't, right? It's just, and that's all it will show me is things I have zero interest in. And the longer I'm on it, the more it shows me something I couldn't possibly find less entertaining. And so I immediately hop on and go, okay, everyone says TikTok's so great, let's give it a chance. Nope. I don't know why it's there. I've told it what I've liked. I've tried to get it to work. I've put in time on it. People say you got to train the algorithm. No, the more you train it, the more it gives you stuff you don't want to see. So I just give up and go to YouTube, and within 10 seconds it knows what I want to see and shows me constantly things that get me addicted. So I probably shouldn't do that either. But I find that YouTube Shorts just works. And it's constantly showing me things I find funny, and things that I find like, oh, there's a new camera announcement or someone's unboxing something that I wish I bought, and I don't know why that's entertaining, but it is. Like, how do we arrange the Buy Me a Coffee 1 hour phone call? Oh, that's easy. So if you want to do the consulting call, so go to buymeacoffee.com, right? Buymeacoffee.com/Scott Allen Miller. Buy 10 coffees and then shoot me an email. You can say who you are. Excuse me. Oh, all the soda. You can say who you are when you do the Buy Me a Coffee, but don't put in your email. Don't put in your. I mean, when you sign in, you can put in your email, but don't like announce your email, your phone number, or anything like that. That is not a secure place. And then just shoot me an email to relocatenicaragua.com and we'll figure it out. And for those who ask, in case people are just interested, where do we go to actually do consulting? Do we use regular phone? Well, we can, but the best place is to go to nicaabla.com. Don't do this on a phone. Do not do this on a phone. Not on a phone. Do this on a computer, just because it's weird. Create a Nika Abla account. That's the best way to communicate with me because it's super secure, works fantastic, easy to find each other, and it just works. And some of you who are on here use it. Watching enough TikTok. TikTok is the best video platform ever. If you don't like your FYP, it's because you're not watching enough TikTok. Yeah, that's their theory. We're going to torture you to make you stay longer. I don't know. Start by showing me the things I asked for, and maybe I'd stay longer. I don't know. I have used YouTube much longer than I've used TikTok. The thing is, YouTube always showed me stuff I was interested in from the moment I started. Like, I choose a video, and then it shows me other things that are good. With TikTok, I try to choose a video, and it doesn't let me. And then it says, oh, you're interested in funny penguin videos? That's probably not. Funny otter videos definitely would do it. Or capybaras with water running on their heads. Love capybaras with water pouring on them. And I try to find one. It won't show me one. And then it'll be like, whatever we're going to do, that's not what we're going to show you. Jeff says, question, what was that platform you mentioned that shows music events and festivals in Nicaragua in general and Leon specifically? Oh, come on. Everyone knows the answer to this. That is Nicarumba.com. Yeah, definitely, if you haven't been there, check out Nicarumba.com. That is the only one of our main channels as well that is not doing an event for Tesoro tomorrow. We should have thought that through and gotten a concert set up at Tesoro and recorded that and had all the channels do it. That would have been over the top. KCS, random question. The thunderstorms here across Nicaragua are epic. Yeah, there's one behind me right now. But especially in Leon. Is that true? Is Leon better than the others? I mean, Leon is generally better than the others. That is true. I guess thunderstorms probably realize that as well. Is there a particular reason Leon is so much more intense than the other areas? Honestly, I was not aware of that. But I don't think it actually is. I think you'll find that Chinandega is the more intense. But the reason that you generally get more intense weather here in western Nicaragua is a couple reasons. One is we're hotter. So the more temperature you have, the more energy is in the air, and the more you can have like really strong storms. We're also the farthest from the mountains. So the storms as they get here are farther out to sea. And so there's just more time for it to like build and do stuff. And if you're right at the mountains when it drops. So for those who don't know, this is north looking south. I'm going to get this wrong. There's a mountain ridge, right? And so imagine the Caribbean's over here, whatever north-south requires that to be the case. The Caribbean blows in moist air, and it comes up during the day. It goes up the mountain slope, and it swirls around. And in the morning, it's very light. And by the evening, it's getting very heavy. And it's just all this more and more water gets added to this like turbine up above the mountain range. And if you have radar that monitors this, you can see this happening. It's really interesting. And then it gets really heavy. And at some point, it just kind of goes, oh, I'm done. And it falls down the other side of the mountain. And it rolls down the mountain. And the action of it coming down the mountain and being heavy and just getting out of this rolling, fueling system is that it starts to want to dump the rain. And so it will come west across the country, and right on the mountain slope, you basically don't get very much of it. Very little happens out there. It's just not that much rain. But immediately after that, you get the cities like Matagalpa, and they get the early rain. So that's our early warning. Then after like an hour or two, it hits Managua, because they're kind of in the middle. And then that's where we really hear about how it is. Like, how heavy is it? They'll let us know. And then it continues on. And then the last ones to get it are Leon and Chinandega, because we kind of hang out to the west compared to the rest of the country. But because we're warmer, I think, and because we're a big freaking flat plain, everywhere else has like elevation, so you have all these things to break up the storms. But by the time it gets to us, it's just moving and there's nothing to block it. And so we have this heat and we have this fast-moving air system, and the combination just, I think, makes it really easy for us to have pretty epic storms. Denise Rivera, first time here on live. We follow you on YouTube. Awesome, thank you. We're planning to move to Nicaragua. Also awesome. We have a shuttle bus conversion. Okay, we were wondering if we bring stuff with, are they going to check all the boxes? Like, do we have to spend hours and hours there? Yes, expect that they will. It is normal for Nicaragua. Nicaragua is the first major border that you expect this to happen at, so you won't have this happen over and over again, most likely. Nicaragua routinely checks everything that you bring in. There are times that they don't. You could get lucky, but the general assumption is if you have luggage, if you have boxes, if you have anything like that, they're going to open it, because they do. Their official thing is full inspection as you come across the border. This is not a tourism pass-through border. Nicaragua is looking for things being smuggled, because everybody south of us and everyone north of us is known for their smuggling. You know what they're smuggling. Both people and drugs have a tendency to try to cross borders, and Nicaragua does not want to be a transit zone, and so they put in a very hefty border process to curtail that, and it does take a bit of time. It also keeps the country incredibly safe, so it's a trade-off. It is for those of us when we're just crossing the border, it's a little bit annoying, but we're also used to it. So you're like, okay, I know how long the border is going to take. I know I got to have my stuff ready. Like you forget that it's actually different than other places. However, to be fair, now the El Salvador airport at San Salvador makes you do a full security check as you go into each gate. So they're like so much more extreme than Nicaragua for flying through. But when you cross the border on land, they're like, whatever, just have a good time. You're like, wait, you don't have to check anything? You're like, what? Go enjoy yourself. It's very strange. There's a lot of Concepcion volcano videos on TikTok. I bet there are, and a bunch of them probably calling them Messiah. Any chance there's a detailed bus map or schedule posted online? Have not found it yet. Well, Luke, I can tell you, no, there is no such thing anywhere at all. Bus stations, on the buses, somewhere online, nope, no such thing. You have no idea how much I want one of those. That is one of the top things I wish this country had. So easy to do and would be just amazing. David, wonder how U.S. citizens will be treated by authorities after the sanctions and visa restrictions today. I have not heard about sanctions and visa restrictions today. Do you have a link for that, David? Because normally if that stuff happens, we get notified about it pretty quickly. Visas don't normally do much because the U.S. basically... Oh, yeah, there it is. This looks like yesterday? Not really today. Today is really when... over migrant smuggling. Nicaragua is the least likely place to be smuggling migrants. The U.S. literally smuggling migrants all over. The U.S. on Wednesday imposed, this is NBC News, the U.S. on Wednesday imposed visa restrictions, visa restrictions on more than 250 members of the Nicaraguan government and levied sanctions on 3 Nicaraguan entities. Let's see who they are. Repressive action, blah, 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 blah. At the same time, Department of State, Homeland Security, and Treasury issued a joint alert to notify airlines and travel agents. The U.S. still has travel agents? What decade is this? About the way smuggling and human trafficking networks are exploiting legitimate transportation services to facilitate illegal migration to the U.S. through Nicaragua. Yeah, right. Oh, the U.S. This is like, so just today, people were saying to me, the stuff you hear in the U.S., and then you come to Nicaragua and you're like, is this even the country they're talking about? What the heck are you talking about? None of this is what's actually happening. It's insane. The Nicaraguan did not immediately respond for a request to comment, probably because they called the wrong place, like everyone always does. Increasingly, migrants are flying into Nicaragua and then heading north overland. Is that really true? Because those flights are shut down. Where would they be flying in from? This is not a thing. No. You can go to the airport. People say, are there migrants everywhere? And we're like, what are you talking about? There are no migrants here. None. You go to the airport? None. There was a time where you saw some. We know what they look like. We know, what the behavior is. And there was a time where you'd see some, but you're in the airport and stuff, you do not notice migrants coming through. You go out, in the countryside, there's no migrant caravans, there's nothing like that. I've seen zero, but you go to Costa Rica and instantly it's walls of migrants, right? Waiting at borders, waiting to get buses, trying to get flights. When you're in other countries in the region, you see the U.S. human trafficking pipeline in play. It is so obvious until you get to Nicaragua and there's nothing. So I'm not saying that no migrant has ever come through Nicaragua. Of course they have. All you have to do is go out in the jungle and cross the river and you're in Nicaragua. There's such a huge border. There's no way they can monitor all of it. Of course people are sneaking through and then trying to go up the east side and go through at Honduras because it's just jungle. So of course that's a thing to do, just like people sneak through Panama and Colombia in the same way, but much more dangerous down there. But the amount of it is so minimal, you don't see it, right? These are ridiculous stories. This is the U.S. clearly trying to distract from other things that they are doing because Nicaragua has been turning up the pressure on the U.S. for a lot of legal stuff recently, and definitely putting the U.S. on the back foot. Where are these companies, though? Do they list a press release? Maybe said Nicaragua was one of... yep, they're a partner for training. Oh, no. Blah, blah, blah. 2 gold companies that said were government affiliated. However, the United States completely bans U.S. interaction with Nicaraguan gold companies already. So these are really minor sanctions. I think you'll find, just from reading this and not having known David that this happened. A couple things. One, in Nicaragua, this isn't news. None of this probably affects anything, because like, okay, so the U.S. can't buy gold from Nicaragua. Someone else buys gold. Like, what does that do? Someone always wants gold, and then so they're doing visa restrictions. Well, the U.S. doesn't issue visas to Nicaraguans under normal circumstances anyway. They're like, oh, members of the government can't get visas. The members of the government can never get visas. That sounds good as soundbite for Americans because they don't realize that the U.S. doesn't issue travel visas for Nicaraguans in general. So we have friends, obviously, who are Nicaraguan because we live here and everyone outside the door is Nicaraguan. And you talk to any of them and they're like, oh, I want to go anywhere in the world. And you're like, oh, cool, how are you going to get there? They're like, well, we can't because the U.S. controls all the airports and they won't issue any visas. So even if your immediate airport isn't the U.S., chances are eventually your plane will pass through the U.S. and the U.S. requires a full visa for transit and they just won't issue them under normal circumstances. So already, all Nicaraguans, not all, 99% of Nicaraguans are under U.S. visa sanctions by default. It doesn't matter who you are, what you've done, unless you have a very specific means of convincing the U.S. that you're someone special. The default is that all people who are Spanish-speaking native under normal circumstances, with the exception of like even Mexico, are under sanctions, and you have to convince them otherwise. Anyway, that was my little rant on what is very misleading news, I think. But no, U.S. citizens will not be treated any differently. You can see, David, my interview, right, with people today talking about how glad they are to have Americans here and getting the American perspective on stuff. Certainly, in the midst of all this, if this was even on anyone's radar, you can see how we're being treated, right? The U.S. is constantly doing this stuff, and under no conditions are Americans or Canadians, North Americans, being treated badly here. It's just not seen that way, right? They know that Americans aren't doing this. They know that this is a government action by a government that is not directed by its populace. So no matter how many Americans are here, they know that they're not necessarily, they could be, right, involved with the U.S. government, but they have no reason to be, right? And that the actions of the U.S. government don't have any tie to the desires of the American people, which is one of the problems in the U.S. So Nicaragua is a much more educated place and understands those things. And what's one of the great things about being here as an American, right? There's a lot of places we go in the world, not a lot. There's a number of places you can go in the world where people have a really negative feel about the fact of you're just from North America, so we don't like you, right? That exists. It's not common, but it does exist. And in this region where there's so much more excuse for feeling that way, if they were to, you really don't get it, right? Like you do not feel that at all. And no matter where you go, right? Managua, Granada, Leon, like tourist centers, totally non-tourist centers, the capital, never do you get the feeling that you're being treated differently or negatively because of your racial or national background. Now, could it affect your visas or something like that? Yes, of course. That's always how it works, right? Oh, we don't have a good relationship with your government, therefore your visa is more difficult. Like, it is what it is. No, nothing. I would have zero anticipation of problems with that. KCS says, we watch the storms from the view from my mountaintop farm. We see the lightning and storms of Managua, Leon, Sabaco, and Matagalpa. Leon definitely has bigger lightning strikes. Very interesting. I mean, yeah. David says, thanks for your informative podcast in Nicaragua, by the way. You're welcome. Thank you for listening and watching. Patricia says, Nicaragua needs to change the vehicle rule from 30 days to 90. A tourist visa is 90. The vehicle rule should match. I don't know very many places that do that, but the tourist visa is 180, and then the vehicle is 30. I mean, the reason is they do not want you keeping a car here. The reason that the tourist one, no official has told me this, right? But putting in a lot of time trying to be empathetic with the rule makers on these things, they want you to stay as a person for as long as possible because they have all these things, because it's permanent, right? The visa, I know that we say it's 180 days, and a lot of people respond that it's 90, but it's 180 days with essentially automatic transparent renewals. So for all intents and purposes, the effective rule for humans is that you get to stay, right? You show up, you live here now. And then whenever you leave, you don't live here now. But they want you to feel like you don't have to leave. That's the general target of the system, that you may feel that you need to start looking into things, you may feel you need to start thinking about things, but one thing you should never feel is that you have to leave Nicaragua. And at no point in years of being here, and with lots of people that I talk to, nobody ever has that feeling. No one ever says, I feel like I had to go. Criminals, yes, but normal people who are on vacation, or people who want to move here, people who want to retire, just nice people that like Nicaragua, they always have this feeling of, I feel like Nicaragua just kind of invited me to stay. And that's what Nicaragua, for everything I can tell, wants. They put in hard work to make you feel welcome, even as an American, when America's treating Nicaragua badly. But they do not want your car to come here ever. They don't want it to come here the first time, but they're okay with it as long as it leaves quickly. But they do not want you to be able to stay longer if you brought a car. They want you to come in, figure out that you're moving through and move on, or they want you to come and realize you want to stay and get out with your car and then get back without it. But they don't want to encourage the car staying for any length of time. They don't want it to break down here. They don't want to have to get repaired here. They don't have to deal with it here. They don't want more cars on the road. None of that is good for the country. They really do want the cars out. Make it happen. David says, yeah, day late. I have mañana syndrome. Sorry. Courtney Rivers says, hi, Scott. When coming in from Liberia to southern Nicaragua, where is the best place to rent a car or lease for 1 month? Probably best. So I do know you can get a car at the border, right? You're standing at the border. You walk out of Nicaraguan border control, and it's right to your left. There is a number of car rentals. I'm sure they're terrible, right? Just because of where they are, they're likely to be the worst option. I am prepared for a wardrobe change, just for no reason. I had this ready. I don't know why I didn't do it until now, so there we go. But is that the best? No, that's probably not the best. But it's the easiest because you get across the border and you can just grab a car. They have very few cars there, whatever. What you probably want to do if you're down there is go on with a taxi or a shuttle or bus to San Juan del Sur. San Juan del Sur has lots of car rentals, and it's a major tourist hub. It's one of the two big tourist hubs, and you can rent a car there relatively close to the border, and it's not a big deal. So that is most likely what you would do. Now, lease for a month. One of the reasons we don't rent cars here is because it's outrageously expensive. Nicaragua is so cheap compared to the U.S., and renting a car here is equal or more than renting in the U.S., so it really throws you off. It's not that it's unaffordable, but the amount that it costs is so high, and generally the value of it is relatively low. There's always going to be an exception where you want to rent a car, and I lived here when long ago, and I've rented cars in the past, but I haven't rented a car in 9 years. I would really skew away from doing so. The only time that I would want to rent a car is if I'm going to be driving nonstop and there's no way for me to hire a driver, and it just can't be done, and I have to drive myself. Other than that, I would even for a month, I would seriously consider, unless the money just is no object and you're like, I just don't care at all. And the crazy cost of all the stuff that will go with that is completely not an issue, and you totally don't care about the risks of driving. And the reason that we mention that, and a lot of people bring this up as like this huge negative, it really isn't as bad as it sounds. And if you're here for a month, it's not as bad. But if you're here as a tourist, the thing you have to be aware of is you are a flight risk. And if you have a car accident in which there is bodily harm, and it doesn't matter if it's caused by you or not caused by you, if it's you that gets hurt, this won't be a problem. But if it's not you that gets hurt, until they can prove that it is not your fault, the risk is, because it is so easy for you to leave the country and just skip on whatever responsibility might be associated with you, you go to jail. You're not treated bad. You're not sent to prison. It's nothing like that. It's generally for a night. They're trying to figure things out. They're not trying to hold you unnecessarily. That is not in anyone's interest, but that is a real risk. They are allowed to and expected to do that if you are a flight risk. And so if you're on vacation and all it takes is someone slamming into you, your car flies off and hits somebody, and until the police are able to determine that you didn't do it, you may find yourself having a really awful vacation, all because you decided to rent a car, and now you're stuck. You can't return the car. Your money is just bleeding out. You can't enjoy your vacation. You can't do anything. The amount that I recommend not driving is pretty high. And I don't know anyone this has happened to. This is not a normal thing. It's very uncommon, but it's more than a rumor. It is an actual policy. To the best of my knowledge, I know of absolutely no resources that say it's not true. I've heard so many reliable sources. I've heard unreliable people, of course. I've heard reliable sources over and over again confirm that this is true. And for all I know, that reliable resource is my lawyer. I don't think that was true, but I do know that this is like, as a driver in the country, I live here, I drive, I have a car, I know that this is a risk. But I also live here full time, so that risk is very different. I have a lawyer on retainer. I'm a resident, or soon to be. I'm very high profile. I have property here. So my flight risk is very, very low, and they know exactly who I am, and my lawyer can call in and be like, okay, we're going to bond out or whatever it takes we can do. Or I'm also, if I spend a weekend sitting in a jail cell, they're not going to beat me. They're not going to be angry with me. They're like, dude, we just can't let you run. Like, okay, look, it's cool, right? My family will bring me food. They'll get me takeout from a restaurant, and I'm going to have a super, super boring weekend. That's all that's going to happen to me. It's not the end of the world. But if this is your vacation, this can be a really, really awful circumstance. There's so many ways to not rent a car under normal circumstances that I generally encourage you to consider not having it. KCS says to Denise Rivera, even when my 4Runner is empty, I've been sent to the massive big rig scanner. They may send you there, and it's a gamble if it takes longer. Going early is your best bet. That is about the large vehicle coming in. Yeah, who knows what that does. Robstinator says, working house renovations this weekend so we can eventually sell our Canadian home and move to Nicaragua. Awesome. Love to hear that. I remember 3 years ago. So for those who, I haven't said this on the live stream yet. 3 years ago tonight, I was sitting in Miami waiting for my flight to the airport, which will be 3 years ago tomorrow. So 3 years ago tomorrow is my famous flight, famous for people who watch my vlog, I guess, with my dogs and my wife and my kids and all the luggage that we moved with, that we still live completely out of that same luggage today. For those who notice, I'm in the same clothes from 3 years ago, and made our move to Nicaragua. So we arrived late at night, tomorrow night, 3 years ago. Tonight, we were having White Castle in a little hotel near the airport waiting for our flight. I think we have White Castle. So that's a cool Now, I first came here 9 years ago. I've been in business in Nicaragua for 9 years. I've been involved heavily in Nicaragua for 9 years. 5 years ago, in 2019, we made the decision that this was going to be home, and then COVID hit and it stalled us from getting here. But 3 years ago tomorrow, we were boots on the ground, and we have been completely here every day since, or been living here every day since we've traveled a little bit. Rent a car, scanner, selling your stuff. So so just before that, so just weeks ago, 3 years ago, we were doing house renovations to sell our house in Texas. Luke says, let me overstate my importance as a nation by repeating my dribble in different ways for different sheep. Yes. KCS, 100% agree with Patricia with the 90-day matching for vehicles. I know, everybody wants it. It's really tough to drive here. Normally you're driving from so far away that it gets all kinds of crazy stuff. TJ says, when migrants get to Panama, they bus them to Costa Rica, for sure. I saw some YouTuber go through the Darien Gap. It's some scary stuff. I used to live not that far from the Darien Gap, and you're not even allowed to approach it. You're not allowed to be in Darien, which is the entire state west of the Darien Gap. Like, the distance you're allowed to get to the Darien Gap is so far. It's something. Panama just moves them through to Costa Rica, and then Costa Rica, they're just everywhere, but they're not under normal circumstances coming from Costa Rica to Nicaragua. Like, you get to the Nicaraguan border, there's none of that going on. And there was a time when I lived here in 2015, Costa Rica moved a whole bunch of migrants to the border and moved them over the border. And Nicaraguan military literally went up to the border and moved them back into Costa Rica, and they shut the borders, and it was a standoff. And actually, so this is an interesting bit of my 9 years ago Nicaraguan history. We were here, and we were getting the tickets to go to Costa Rica. I had never been to Costa Rica at that time. So my wife and I and our kids were going to go down because Paul, my business partner and roommate, who's just, 25 feet away in the other room waiting for dinner to get made, now we've been in business together for forever. We had just done business together in Panama months before, when I had lived there, then I had moved to Nicaragua. He had gone back to the U.S. where he worked. He had returned to the region and was vacationing, just vacationing in Costa Rica. And we're like, oh, we're living in Nicaragua. We're so close. We'll come down and hang out with you. So we were going to hang out with Paul, who I live with now, in Costa Rica 9 years ago on the day that this border standoff happened. So we weren't able to go because they closed the border and we weren't able to go. Not related to really anything that is our story, but that is how much Nicaragua takes and always has people passing through seriously. They really just don't let that happen if they can help it. Wow, you're live. Nice, says Secretive. Yes, I try. I really do try to be live every Thursday. I'm not sure Thursdays are the best. I do have some commitments or wannabe commitments that want me on Thursday, so I'm not sure when to do it. But I really like doing the live show, and Thursdays seem to work well. I don't know how we experiment with that to figure out when is good. I do need to bounce around a little bit and see what we can do. But yeah, we tried to do the live. When I'm traveling, I can't. But it is really cool, right? Like everyone hanging out, like the live shows are fun. And TJ says, yeah, 42 viewers and it just hit 43. Yeah, we have a lot of viewers right now. This is cool. These are big numbers. Total number of views right now is 177, which is pretty awesome on these long shows. And just a little how the vlog is doing. We're pushing currently 1.4 million views per year is the rate that we're at the moment. So it's a 28-day lunar month. So it's not 1/12 of the year, it's 1/13 of the year. We just this morning hit 7,000 view hours per lunar month, which I know people are going to be like, well, is that number good, bad? I don't even know. What does that mean? But 7,000 is a number we've never hit before. We were so excited when we bounced off 6.7 thousand months ago. And now we're at 7,000, which is just insane. You have to do, I think, 3,000, maybe it's 4,000 in a year to qualify for monetization, along with a bunch of other qualifications. But that one thing, you have to have that much if you're using your show and not shorts. Shorts are so much harder. Like I don't know how anyone would do that. But the regular show, you got to hit 4,000 hours to monetize, and that's the thing. Most shows can never get that. It is so hard to maintain 4,000 hours in a year, like it's all but impossible. And we're doing, we're just closing in on 4,000 every fortnight. So it's a really cool number to see 7,000 for 28 days. It's that's of all the numbers that we look at, that's the one that's most exciting. Because it means if we do like shorts and stuff, they don't count very much. If we make like lots of short episodes, they don't count. Like you have to watch tons of them. But if we make long episodes, then if people watch them, the point is that view hours takes into account everything that everyone is doing and looks at the total. Everything else is like a weird subset. You could have a bazillion views, but your show's 1 second long, so no one actually watched anything. They just clicked on it and went, oh, and then moved on. But to have 7,000 hours means like you guys are actually eyeballs on the screen and watching the show, and it's really cool. But it says, why rent a car when it is so cheap to be driven? That is really the biggest point. There are exceptions, right? There's absolutely this freedom of having a car, and you need to move lots of stuff, and you don't have any extra space. There's times you need to rent a car. I don't want to act like you don't sometimes need to rent a car, but most people renting cars should consider a driver because it is very easy to get a driver with their own car for the same or less money than renting a car. And then they have the insurance. If there's an accident, they don't go to jail for those accidents because they're not a flight risk. They don't have a visa to leave the country. They can't go to an embassy and hide. They can't just catch the next flight and hope no one catches them. None of that can they do. So they don't have those same risks under normal circumstances. Plus, people know them. Like they're a taxi driver, they're a professional driver. This is their income. They know how to be safe. They know what to do. They know how to talk to the cops. They know how to just all these little things that are very stressful or confusing as a tourist. Very easy for them, and they take care of it. And often it is so cheap because they have the car, because this is what they do for a living. It is not uncommon to be able to get a driver. And to be fair, if I take a driver, I have a personal driver. He's incredibly safe, incredibly professional, one of the most sought after drivers in the country. And like everybody knows my driver. He's not my driver, but the one I use, everyone knows. And if I use him to take me to the airport. Now, keep in mind, this is 2 hours to get to the airport. Whatever we do at the airport, normally he's going to wait there for 2 hours. 2 hours back, it's a 6-hour day. It's not his full day. If I hire him for a full day, it's more. But hiring him to take me to the airport with the gas, with the insurance, with the car, with the driver, with the waiting, with the helping me with my luggage, with knowing where to take me, not having to navigate, all kinds of things, he costs about half of a one-day car rental. And he's got a brand new Toyota. It's completely clean. So's the rental, but it's like perfect. I would lose so much by renting a car. Joe Black says, hey, Scott, have you used Avianca Airlines? Yes, I have. I used them during the pandemic. They were terrible. And I just used them to go up to Guatemala a few weeks ago, and they were great. So I've heard that they were good pre-pandemic, got really bad during the pandemic, and are back to being good again. What little experience I have seems to reflect that. So we'll say that that's probably true. There is something really loud going on outside my house. That was probably some vehicle going down the road. That was super loud. How do you drink your 25-year-old rum? Straight or on the rocks? Either way. But chilled, definitely, like hot rum is. But definitely straight. You do not mix 25-year rum. I don't mix anything over 17 years. 12-year we mix if we're feeling good. I prefer, though, I like the 10-year more than the 12-year. I feel like we had this conversation last week, but maybe it was with someone else. Maybe it wasn't on the live stream. But the 10-year is the best for the flavor, and it's the strongest, but it's the hardest to find in country. You can definitely find it, but it's just not, the average store isn't going to carry it. Luke says, any opinion on Tour HQ for their guide service? No, I don't know Tour HQ, so I can't say anything, good, bad, nothing. I don't even know what kind of service they do. So Marco says, United all the way. I'm not a fan of United. We came down our first time on United, and I've never actually had an experience on United where they didn't treat us like crap. They're super expensive. They do come in at convenient times. They fly old planes. I think they're mostly Boeing. I will avoid an airlines just because they fly Boeing, but also United was absolutely terrible. We discovered Spirit because United treated us terribly. We already had tickets on United, and we ended up buying replacement tickets on Spirit and discovered how good flying could be. We had never known. We always flew places like United and didn't realize that the cheap airlines were so much better than the expensive ones. Now we're able to fly to and from the U.S. at $60, and I know it's going to make it. It's not going to get canceled like United. It's not going to be late like United. I'm not going to get treated like garbage like United. It's fantastic. I don't worry about anything. I say all the time, like living down here, and United goes into the worst possible airport, IAH. Now, if you're an American, IAH isn't so bad. If you're not American, IAH, avoid it like the plague. They don't accept credit cards. They don't accept cash, and they don't accept non-U.S. credit cards. They actually hate not just immigrants, but tourists and people passing through. The United States needs to look at IAH Airport as a problem to the nation. It is. Other countries would see it as an attack on the tourism industry. And United using that that airport is a major statement about how much United hates their customers. Right? It is. United is a brand name of customer hatred. It really is. So, but some people get their points on there, and they do have direct flights to Houston. So some people are like, wow, it's direct flights. If I need to go to Houston, I will drive to Costa Rica and take Southwest from Liberia directly to Hobby and get a good airport in Texas. Because I'm a Texan, right? That's where I'm from. Well, originally New York, but I've lived in Texas for a long time. But Southwest even though Southwest isn't great by any stretch, right? Go to Hobby. Hobby's a great airport. Liberia is a great airport. Southwest is fine, and it's cheap, so it works out. That's what I do if I need to go there. Whatever's going on back and forth on the street outside is really loud. I don't know if you guys can hear it. Marco also says, let's see the volcano coverage, please. I mean, I can't turn the camera around and show you the coverage, but what we know right now is that Concepcion is continuing to go off. The ash fall is right now still over the lake, as far as we know. We haven't heard anything about it hitting the cities near the coast yet, like Granada, or if like Tepe is going to get it. That area, I guess, like Catarina, like south of there, they might get it on the early side. We're kind of just waiting to see what happens. Right now, the last picture that I got, this was sent to me by someone official. Not that there's official and unofficial volcano pictures, but someone who has connections out there to know what's going on. Let's see if I can figure out how to pop it onto the show. It's not impossible to get images on the show, but it can be a little bit tough. Oh my gosh, I have a picture of the volcano before it exploded already on the show. That's hilarious. I will show that in a second. I'm not actually sure that it's the right volcano. It might be the other one on the island with it. I'm not good at eyeballing the volcanoes super fast while doing it remotely. Okay, so picture 7 is the old one. Picture 10 is the new one. Let's get us over here. Take us to 7. And that is the volcano before the eruption. And that's now. Well, obviously a little bit ago because we're dark now, but not too long ago. That is Concepcion on Ometepe. And we're at 47 viewers. Wow. Oh, I forgot to read what's going on. Yeah, so the volcano, we don't have any additional news, but it's a lot of ash. 18,000 foot plume. Denise says, we're going to live out of the shuttle bus on a tourist visa. Are there any stipulations on border runs? So there's no border runs for you, but the shuttle bus has to leave every 30 days. We've known other people who've tried to do that, and the success rate is 0. I know of no people who've done that and ended up, they've decided to give up on the project. I don't want to say it's impossible. I don't want to say don't do it, but I cannot possibly overstate how much I wouldn't do that. I can't imagine a less good experience. So no, 180 days, you cannot wait. You have to have your bus renewed within 30 days. You will have to do a ton of paperwork. Assume that your entire life will be figuring out that shuttle bus. I know someone who did this, and they literally got an occasional break of 1 to 2 days in between having to go to one government office or another to deal with their vehicle. It was not one they were living out of. It was one that they could just drive around. They had to be in the capital basically every couple days, and they did everything possible to make it as painful as possible because they wanted the vehicle out of the country. They're not going to actually ban it, but they will make it clear it is not welcome. And so they will convince you that you want to leave if you bring that vehicle. I guarantee it. And there was a couple who did this recently. Now, I haven't spoken to them. I left them some messages, but they never got back to me. They came down. They were YouTubers. They had a YouTube channel. They were up in Shenandoah, so not too far away. They came down in a converted school bus, did the exact same thing, going to live out of it, blah, blah, blah. They made it, I think, 2 months before they realized that they needed to just move on. I don't know if they returned the bus. I don't know if they just gave up on YouTube. I don't know what. But every other video was about this disaster of having brought a vehicle that they couldn't get rid of and made them unable to do anything else. The cost of having to move in and out of the country every 30 days, the cost of every between 15 and 30 days having to do all this paperwork, all these really expensive, really onerous things if you have that vehicle. You've got to be rich and have nothing that you want to do except for do paperwork and deal with border crossings with a vehicle. If you do that, everyone I know, this is not something I've done, but I can only imagine that would be the worst thing ever. If you want to drive something like that down, full of your stuff, drop it off and drive it back, absolutely. They're 100% do that. Just don't stay over 30 days, or they're going to be unhappy. Not Not like personally unhappy, just the system is designed to make you feel like it's grumpy. Marco says, I enjoy your videos. I live in Seattle. My wife is from Nicaragua. She's been here 5 years now. I brought her here. Very cool. Where in Nicaragua is she from? Denise says, which airline would we use then? We live in Indiana. Not sure the better airport for our state. Thanks for the info. We've watched mostly all of my videos. That's a lot. Thanks. So the system is basically always the same as to what I recommend. Do whatever it takes from your local airport, whatever makes sense, and fly to Miami. All of the good flights for Nicaragua currently originate in Miami if you're coming from North America. If you're coming from other places, yeah. But if you're coming from North America, Miami is your airport. And I do this for Canadians, Americans, like everyone is like, I'm going to fly from here, I'm going to fly from here. I'm like, no, the secret is get to Miami. Everywhere in North America has cheap flights into Miami. Everywhere. Good flights, cheap flights, lots of flights. Miami is a hub. But nowhere has flights to Managua except for Miami and Houston. Houston is the worst. Don't go there. There's no good airlines that flies through Houston, and everyone is expensive. Like there's nothing good about the Houston route. Every good airline coming to Nicaragua from North America originates in either Miami or Fort Lauderdale, which is the same place just up the street. So it's actually Fort Lauderdale Airport is where Spirit flies out of. So do whatever it takes to get to Miami and then fly down on Spirit from Miami. Most places in the U.S., you can fly all the way on Spirit. And I can't believe how much people struggle to find this because we just go, like, every flight discussion is just go to spirit.com, look it up. Every single person I know who does that is like, oh my gosh, the flights are a tenth what I thought they were. Like it's completely different. So I have a friend, she comes from Canada, and she's like, yeah, it cost me like, I don't know, $2,000 every time she comes to Nicaragua. I'm like, how? Just fly anywhere in the U.S. on the cheapest flight you can get, then take Spirit here for $100. And she's like, no, there's no way. And then she started looking it up, and she's like, I can go from anywhere for $100. I'm like, yeah. I came from New York here, of course, through Miami, $106 all the way from New York to here on Spirit. We looked it up recently from Houston to Miami to here, $68. And this is the airline I prefer. Yeah, they're very bare bones, but they're polite. They do a good job. They have the best, second best delay track record for all American airlines. They have one of the best safety records. They fly Airbus, not Boeing, which is a big deal these days. They're very good. For everything that matters in an airline, they're really good. Price, service, comfort, delays, reliability, safety, all those things, they rock. Yeah, they don't have, there's some amenities they don't have. They don't have a lounge. They don't have whatever. James says, with that volcano eruption in Ometepe, is there any work on geothermal electrical generation? Well, I mean, that's what the country runs on. Are you wondering if we're running out to do it right now during the eruption? No. But the country's powered by geothermal. We have major geothermal plants all over the place. We're coming in October. Would you recommend a vehicle service like a Lyft? No, there's no vehicle services here. The only thing we have is taxis, and then there's a system for calling taxis like InDrive. So that's what you use if you're in the capital. You use InDrive to get a taxi because taxis can be dangerous in the capital. In the small cities, the taxis are safe. Like Leon, not that they're dangerous in the capital, but that's how you end up with someone who's like, oh, I stole their luggage. Haha, they put their luggage in the car and I took off, right? Or they drive you around and charge too much or whatever. InDrive protects you from that. But in other places like Leon, you just take a taxi, like it doesn't matter. But it depends where you're trying to get around. You don't use those things to go between the cities. Use the public transportation if you want to be cheap, like the UCA buses, the interlocales. But if you're going to take something, you want something a little bit more luxurious. You don't really want to do public transportation. Then just take something like the Ashimche shuttle, which is going to be quite a bit more expensive, but nothing like renting a car. And then you've got a big passenger van that's loading up all your luggage and taking you where you need to go. Wow, this changes a lot. Yeah, it probably does. Very different. Nicaragua's its own place, right? Things that you would commonly do other places won't make sense here. And things that would be crazy other places are completely normal here. So there's a lot of adjusting to those kinds of things once you're on the ground and being like, oh, there really is. Almost everything's easy, but don't bring things in. That is the bringing a whole bunch of, I'm just bringing my life with me from somewhere else. No, start over here. Trust me, it's almost always just so much better, easier, cheaper, more effective. Courtney says, thanks, just need to feel the Nicaragua area. Panama and Costa Rica, car rentals are cheap. It's been a while, but I lived in Panama, and it was staggering how expensive car rentals were. And we got scammed on them. Like my worst car rental experiences ever are in Panama. In fact, everything there has doubled. Still looking for a new home. Thanks. You said aren't cheap. Well, I'm totally agreeing with you. They're ridiculously expensive. Here, they're not as expensive. They're definitely not as bad, but they still don't make sense. The difference, though, is in Panama or Costa Rica, hiring a full-time driver is very difficult. I mean, someone will do it for sure, but it's very, very expensive to hire someone, especially in Costa Rica. But in Nicaragua, the cost of a driver is so low, and it creates a job. So it's not just that you're saving yourself money, saving yourself a bunch of headache. You're also creating a really good job for the day or for the month or whatever. And so that can be good. When I first got here 3 years ago, I had a whole bunch of stuff that went on and I needed a driver for 3 days. So I literally just paid a guy for 3 days and he drove me everywhere I needed to go, provided the car, took care of the gas, like everything was handled. And this was my first day. It's like I just got off the plane, like I don't have any resources, I don't have anything to handle anything. Luckily I did have an office here, so I had employees who were able to jump in and help with stuff. But I needed to be driven all over the place, hours and hours every day. And he would just pick me up at 6 o'clock in the morning, drive me hours across the country, go wherever we needed to go. He would wait. Like I'd have to go in. He couldn't come with me. He would just go to the gas station across the street and just sit there, have a soda, hang out, nap on have his phone, charge his phone, just sit there all day. Whenever I needed him, he'd be there in 2 seconds, pull right up, go to the next place, do whatever we need to do, go sit in the gas station and wait. It was so effective, and I couldn't have rented a car for the amount of money that he cost me. I would have probably spent $20 to $30 more per day to rent the car. I did not have a spot to park. I could not have dealt with it had I done. I didn't know where to go. I could not have navigated. I would have had to have a navigator. There were so many things that he saved me from. Plus was cheaper, and I didn't have time to go find a rental. Literally, that would have broken the camel's back. That was too much. With him, all I did was, hey, I just need picked up, and he was just there and just made everything. That was fantastic. Marco says, oh, Chinandega. It's amazing how many people leave Chinandega. It's very hot. James says, you mentioned that motorbikes get pulled over at higher frequency than cars. Is there a reason? Yeah, for sure. So Nicaraguans who are skirting rules, who they're not paying for their insurance, they're not paying for stuff, are very unlikely to have cars. Cars are expensive here. Right? If you think about it, in the United States, we can buy a car. Let's just say that a Toyota Corolla costs $20,000. That's probably not true. Let's just say, if you take that exact same car and bring it to Nicaragua, it's going to cost $21,000, $22,000, just because we're a smaller market. It costs more to get things here. The same thing getting it here. Because they're made in the United States, right? They're not made here. So there's always this little bit extra. Just putting it on a boat and getting it here costs a little bit extra. So you start with cars are not cheap. Then you take that the income of the average Nicaraguan is fractional compared to the income of an American. So you combine that. And buying a car for an American is still a big purchase, obviously. For a Nicaraguan, the average Nicaraguan, it's an impossible purchase. For those Nicaraguans who have them, they're an extremely large purchase. Think 500% of an American buying a car on average. This is a major, major, major purchase. You would never do it casually. So anyone who is getting a car will also maintain that car, put insurance on it. They're very likely to follow the law because the penalties that could come with that and the risk of your car being seized because you're breaking the law, like, oh, you're driving without insurance, we're impounding your car. Well, to an American, it's like, oh, that's annoying. To a Nicaraguan, that's a potentially financially crippling penalty because that generally, if you're buying a car, it's because it's a major business investment of some sort. So people with cars are very likely to do what they're supposed to do. There's still obviously people who don't, and that's why cars get pulled over. But if you're getting bikes, a lot of the bikes are just, oh, I found this in the garbage. This costs $200. Like there's all these things that bikes are just where the people without money go, and you're still required to have insurance and all that stuff, and you're required to have a helmet and required to have your paperwork. So there's so many more bikes on the road and so many more problems with the paperwork of bikes on the road that a lot of times they just set up bike stops and they only look at the bikes because they definitely constitute the majority of the problems. They're also easier to deal with if you're collecting a lot of them because we've seen it where they're doing like the drunk checks after a party, and they'll just take bike after bike. They'll pull up a truck and just load the bikes into a truck, and then take them somewhere to hold while everyone's in the drunk tank. Whereas with cars, now you're filling parking lots with cars that you have to move somehow. It's a big problem. So that's really what does it. Sean says, house is sold, be there soon. That is awesome. Congratulations, Sean St. Peter. Nika Man says, got better deals on my plane from Fort Lauderdale. Yeah. Honestly, I get better deals not from Fort Lauderdale, but going through Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale has a high tax, so if you originate at another city, generally you get a deal flying through Fort Lauderdale, but then you have a layover, but worth it. I guess I'm cheap. Patricia says, I thought the couple of Chinandega still had the bus and was still doing border runs. Maybe they are, but they completely eliminated their channel, and before they did, it was like a constant, this is such a disaster, and they were having problems. And those border runs can only go on for so long. If you have a vehicle, your limitations on your border runs, this is not official, I just know, right? If you make that border run one that involves a vehicle, your amount of time that you're going to get to do a border run is going to shorten significantly. Marco says, are you in the States now or live in Nicaragua? Do these look like American windows to you? I have lived in Nicaragua continuously for 3 years. My total time in the United States is far below 30 days a year. I do go up and see my family. My dad lives in New York, and my in-laws all live in Texas, and my cousin lives in Texas. So we split our time between upstate New York, like Rochester area, and Houston, Texas. But like 10 days in each, maybe 12. That's about it. I did stop by Florida a little bit this year, just, 6-7 days. But again, flying through Florida, so it wasn't like we went to Florida. We just stayed a couple days while we were flying through. That is it, right? Like that's all that I do in the United States. I do go other places. Like I spent a bit of time in Bolivia last year. I try to travel and stuff like that, but I do not live in the United States. I have nothing in the U.S. I have no house, no apartment. I have a small storage unit that we're trying to get rid of, hopefully here in a number of weeks. That we've been waiting for paperwork so that we can do that. It's not intentional, just a lot of bad decisions there. Things I try to warn you guys not to do. But yeah, no, completely live in Nicaragua. In case you probably missed, 3 years ago tonight I was waiting by the airport, and 3 years ago tomorrow is when we flew down and permanently moved to Nicaragua. I first lived here 9 years ago. I lived between a bunch of different countries for a number of years. I moved out of the United States like 10 years ago. I started like prepping to move out of the United States in 2011, and then by 2015 was gone. So over 9 years ago, coming up on 10, we were absolutely out of the U.S. as our main base. Ended up during COVID getting stuck in the United States, unfortunately, but was in Nicaragua 9 years ago, living here temporarily, then visited a few times in between, and then 3 years ago tomorrow moved 100%, and this is our home. So this is our base. If we travel anywhere, we travel from here. We live in Nicaragua. KCS says, for my 4Runner, every 30 days I renew my registration at aduanas in Managua. Then I need to return 1 to 2 days later to pick up the new registration. You're allowed 3 renewals. So yeah, a total of 90 days with every 30 days going into Managua twice. Now, if you're in Managua, that's not so bad. If you're not, that adds up fast, especially if you're in like Esteli or something, or out here. And that's why I knew people who did it with a Jeep. And they ended up, because they had a trailer, it was every 2 weeks, and they had to do the double. So it was like 4 trips a month, and often they couldn't get it done in one day, so they'd have to stay and do it again the next day. Like, it became their entire life. They literally did nothing else. Every time we met them, they'd be like, oh, we're just having a beer. We just got another couple days on our paperwork. And then they'd whine about it, and then eventually they moved on. They just gave up. And was that the only factor in them giving up? No, they got a job offer, something to put. Had they not done that, the chances that they would have considered staying could have been really, really high. How about going out to the coffee farms? I'm definitely going to go. Is that a question for me about the show? Or is that a question about like you for fun as a thing to do when you're here? I'm definitely going to be doing that on the show. So if you missed the part, I'm getting a residency hopefully very, very soon. The paperwork is supposed to go in any day. It's finally assembled. Once I have residency, my plan, I did not say this on the show, is to run down to Costa Rica and buy a car and import it. I know, I tell everyone not to do that. Very specific purpose, not my only car. Lots of planning around this, and it's still probably a bad idea, but I'm doing it for the show. Hopefully, if everything works out, and I'm going to come back with a completely electric car, which don't do that. Electric is not really a thing here. So I'm being really, really reckless, but I know exactly how I use vehicles. Like I really have a lot of planning around this. And unless you're a YouTuber who goes back and forth to the beach, like it's a very specific circumstance that makes this make sense. But once I have that, I'm going to be able to run up to Elton's coffee farm, and we're going to do some filming up there. We're going to do some freaking cool stuff up in Acatal, and it'll be amazing. And we'll show lots of coffee stuff and film all kinds of stuff. So that will be coming, but I don't know if that's going to be weeks, months. I don't know how long it's going to take because I got to get the residency, get the car, and then arrange when Elton's in country. But he's normally in country, but got to arrange that. Nika Man says, I even got a credit card from them. That's Spirit, I guarantee, Airlines. When you mentioned a couple streams ago, Spirit Airlines are really cheap, but their flight hours are horrible. I honestly like the midnight flights, but yeah, I get why they're bad. I'm arriving at 1 a.m. in Managua, but really cheap. So the secret's if you have a driver, they'll just get you. Like, they don't care. My driver gets me off that flight and drives me straight back home. So I just sleep in the car, whatever. Or the Best Western across the street is quite nice and not expensive. Just walk across the street. You don't have to have a shuttle, or they'll bring a shuttle over and get you because it's across the street. They're like, haha, we brought you a shuttle. And then you get in and they go, and they drop you off and you're like, oh, I could have walked that. They're like, yep. It's very funny. But I like the Best Western. I like their breakfast. I like their little place. Like, the whole place is cute. Whatever. My kids actually like going there. They're like, can we go to the Best Western? We're like, it's by the airport. Like, no, we're not going out there, but they like it. So it's, that's doable. But yes, if you're going to fly any amount here, get the Spirit credit card. And I pay for the upgraded one. Now, I really get into travel cards, which I didn't used to. I do now. So I always fly Spirit when I'm up here. I always fly LATAM when I'm in the South. I always stay at Hilton's. I've just made that commitment a long time ago. And then we always use a Chase normal travel card and put those together. And I get amazing Hilton benefits. I get amazing Spirit benefits. And then my regular travel card gives me really good deals. And then I have this triple card system where I'm able to, maneuver cards, or if one, doesn't work, I have another option, because one's an American Express, one's a MasterCard, and one's a Visa. So I have everything covered. I do want to get a Discover card. They wouldn't let me because I got all three of those at the same time. And they're all travel cards, so there's no international fees. They all give me loads of travel points of one sort or another. The one gives me free flights on Spirit, one gives me free upgrades and free rooms at the Hilton, and the other just gives me like money. And the combination is fantastic. We recently, I'm going to show, we did an entire trip where we spent so much money on a trip. It was like all covered on points. It was weeks of luxury hotels covered by hotel points. It was all kinds of flights and stuff covered by flight points. It was fantastic. I mean, we definitely paid for stuff, but it was so much of it was covered by points. It was great. But you have to be dedicated to using, Marco said, use United. If that's the airline you're using, you have to stick with it. And then you get those points, and then you get upgrades, or you get, lounges, or you get, I don't know, whatever perks that they decide to do. That's how you do it. If you're just, I'm just going to take the cheapest flight every time, yeah, you can save money in the moment. In general, I think you pay more in most cases. So yeah, that's what I do. But I use it so much that all three of my cards are paid cards. I didn't go for the free ones on any of them. That you have to really carefully evaluate for you. But because of the way we use them and the amount of points we're able to get, we pay for the upgraded ones for the points. KCS says, so every 120 days I need to cross the Costa Rican border to export and import my Forerunner again to restart the clock. It's annoying, but I'm grateful to have my vehicle. A Forerunner is definitely not as bad as other things. That's one of the, if you have a vehicle that's super practical, it can be, but again, you can also buy most of that stuff in country and not have to do that. So it depends on the circumstance. But if you're not a resident yet, buying one in country can be very difficult, but you can always just form a corporation and buy one even before you get here. Marco says, happened to me. Usually a couple dollars will set you free. That was probably an accident that he's talking about, I imagine. True Seeking says, I got a one-way ticket to Nicaragua from Boston to Managua, $67 after tax and everything. That's fantastic. The cheapest I've seen was $68, and that was not after tax. So Nice. KCS, I imagine it will be the same for your travel van. Good luck. Denise says, transportation meaning to the farmlands in the woods, so to speak. We'd love to go to different towns, not just the normal map towns. Oh, no, yeah. If you're getting a driver by the day, you go anywhere you want. You do need to make sure they have a vehicle that will go to those places, but a lot of those vans don't go those places either. So that's actually, so like a 4Runner, that's different. You generally could go everywhere with a 4Runner, but other things, like you're going to be living out of something, taking those on roads that are going to rip it apart is not advised. And even going out to like Salinas Grande, it's just one of the local beaches here. And the videos that are coming out tomorrow, the trip out to Tesoro, watch Drive Warp tomorrow. And just a reminder to everyone, make sure you're subscribed to Drive Warp. Make sure you're just subscribed to Nicaragua 360. And obviously you guys are all subscribed to my channel, to my vlog channel. All of that's going to be covering Tesoro tomorrow. There's going to be really cool footage on all of them that's all going to tie together. I really want feedback on how that works. But definitely watch the Drive Warp episode, which is like, it's not super long, but like 25, 30 minutes of driving the Tesoro Road, and try to imagine how bumpy that would be. We won't go in there in a Yaris. We won't go there in a Corolla. If you go there in a normal car, those roads are so rough, they'll start breaking things. Now, a 4Runner, something like that, a Hilux, no problem. They'll do it all day long. But there's a reason why people are wary of driving like decent cars out to those locations. Like they take some damage. And so much of Nicaragua is on the coast. The amount of salt in the air destroys cars really fast. That's just another thing. But yeah, so if you're going up to the farmlands or whatever, yeah, just take, there's basically no individual thing. Right? There's basically no individual action, Denise, that will make you need to have a car. The thing that would make you need to have a car is like a big combination of things. We're just doing all these different things and we have all these people and we put it together. We got to rent a car. Maybe. But for any item that you come up with, what if I want to do this? No, driver will do whatever that one thing is. Because that's how we all live. I went for a year of living here without a car. And then we got a car, and it's still like, only my roommate really has the car. I mean, it's our car, but he uses it all day long. I rarely drive unless he's not here. Then I drive all the time. But we still rent a car for doing, or not rent a car, we still get a driver who drives us places for certain things, like going to the airport, or if we're going to places in the mountains and we don't want to take, still, we're always doing that to get a truck or whatever. So it's, even as people who live here, most people don't have cars. So all those tasks are normally done some other way. I think, no, let's see. Transportation meeting, Nika man, how much would a driver make per day? Actual make? They don't make a lot, but so a taxi driver makes way above minimum wage. So minimum wage is currently above $200 a month. So a working day, it's about $10. So a taxi driver, you would expect to have profits in the $20 to $40 per day range if they're working well in a good city. Of course, they have a ton of costs. So the amount of money moving through them is far in excess of that. But paying for the license for the car, because they have to have a taxi license, all that stuff adds up. Now, they don't have to have a taxi license if they're only doing specialty driving, but then you don't have very regular customers. How do you find a driver? This is Greg West. So Greg, yes, don't worry, they'll find you, Marco says. Glad I caught that. Yeah, that's often the case. They will find you. So most of the taxi drivers will do it. If you're staying at a hotel, staying at a resort, anything like that, talk to them wherever you're going to be. So like if you're going to be staying here in Leon, obviously I can just give you the name of someone in Leon. That's not a problem. Or in Managua, we would have names of people. Not a problem. But if you're going to be staying in Matagalpa, in an Esteli, I don't know a driver that's based there, and you don't want someone driving across the country to come get you. Like that gets awkward. But chances are you're already going to be staying somewhere. You don't need a driver on that very first day in most cases. Or, super common, I want picked up from the airport, what do? Just talk to whatever hotel you're staying at. They will send that driver for you. And then ask that driver, hey, do you want to be my driver? What will you cost? Do you have a buddy who will be my driver? If they don't give you numbers you like or they don't want to do it, just go talk to your hotel when you get there and say, hey, this guy was nice and all, but he doesn't want to be my driver, or I don't like him. Can you find me someone? And everybody knows someone who wants to be a driver, because it's a well-paying, well-respected career here, and not everybody wants to do it, but a lot of people do, enough that everyone knows someone who definitely wants to do that. And you don't need to have a taxi driver in order to be a private driver. So you could find someone who is like, oh, no, they only do this when the opportunity comes up, but they have access to a car, so they're going to do it. Or they'll go rent a car, because they can rent cars much cheaper than you with many fewer problems. And so That's just a process that works really well. But if you're in a place like here in Leon, like I have a driver, and if he doesn't do it, which he wouldn't always, he has, I don't know, 20 guys that work for him, and he'll just send one of them. So it's very, very easy, but just ask around. Okay, so I just got this message from someone in Managua, someone I'm actually hanging out with Saturday night, lives on Ometepe, and he and his family have already evacuated the island. There is high sulfur gas content on Ometepe from the eruption at Concepcion, and so I don't think that they're at a point where they have to evacuate the island, but they are definitely getting people off of the island at this point. How do you find a driver? Don't they'll find you. November coffee tours while full season. I don't actually know when the coffee tours are good. We got to get Elton on the show. Sometimes he's on the show to tell us. Don't get an electric car. Someday you're going to want to take a big road trip and the EV won't make it. So Patricia, one of the things is that I have multiple cars. That's part of the beauty of that. But we also have electric charging stations here in the country, and the distance you can go. So I want to get just one of the little cheap ones. Believe it or not, only because I live near the beach and not downtown, you can drive on the super cheap sub 10,000. This is not the United States, right? Really good electric cars, the ones that they're like essentially banning in the US because they're going to destroy Tesla because they're so much better. We can get them $9,500. I can pick it up in San Jose, Costa Rica. That's on the Panama side of Costa Rica. And I can drive it all the way up here to the Honduras side of Nicaragua, 10 kilometers short of my house. I can basically cross 2 entire countries on a single charge. So there's nowhere in Nicaragua that I would have a problem. Plus, we have charging stations between like here in Managua. Like we're modern with modern infrastructure, and we're a tiny place. Like we really can get around pretty well. And they charge anywhere, right? Every car available on the market these days has a normal 110 plug. So you just go to a hotel anywhere for the night and plug in. It would be very hard for me to end up at a spot where a road trip wanted to happen that was so long, and I would want to take that vehicle because it would be small. The only thing is, like, I do want to be able to drive to Belize, but I've got at least for the moment, my total piece of crap Toyota. Toyotas are nice. Mine is not. Marco said, what I meant was, at checkpoints, if you get stopped, usually a few dollars will set you free. Oh, I mean, if you get stopped at a checkpoint, you should have no problem. You're supposed to get stopped. There shouldn't be anything wrong, right? Like, you don't need to bribe people at checkpoints. The implication of being pulled over is not that you did something wrong. It's just they're just checking your paperwork. So if you're going to drive in Nicaragua, make sure you have your insurance, registration, and driver's license like sitting right in your console. You pull up. Always be friendly with the cop. They're there to make chit chat. They want to make sure you're not crazy. Just be like, hey, what's going on? ¿Qué tal? Right? And you just grab your paperwork. Don't wait for them to ask. Just hand them those 3 things because they need those 3 every single time. You do that, and the chances that they're even going to talk to you further is like 5%. It's just, oh, you got your go. Have a good day. Right? If you don't have that stuff, you don't know what to do, then they start asking more and more questions. Marco says there's no EV stations in Nicaragua. There's actually 2 just on the Carretera Nueva alone. One just outside Nagarote, one just outside La Paz Centro. So if you're going back and forth between the 2 biggest cities, Leon and Managua, it's charging galore. They're not like on the road. You have to pull off just a little bit, but they're out there. So you're really good. I don't need a car in Nicaragua. I love the tricycles. Yeah, they only work if you're not going between the cities, though. Nika Man said, no, I meant how much would a private driver charge per day to drive us around? Generally, so prices are up, but probably like $120 to $150 per day. What you should do is negotiate it and not include. I'm so ready for this. Look at this. Don't include the gas and just pay for the gas yourself, and then just have them go to the gas stations and fill them up, whatever. And then you'll have this predictable cost. And if you don't go anywhere, he just costs what he costs. If you go a bunch, you pay for the gas. That's what I would do if you're going to do it any amount. I mean, I have a driver, so I don't do it that way. Marco says I have a private driver. I get charged $80 to $100 a day, but they're with you all day. Yeah, if you know what you're doing, you can get one below $100. But if you don't, right, if you're like on vacation, you don't have anything, you're just having a hotel flight, figure 120 to 150, but still that's less than a rental, and you have a driver and a navigator and all these things. Denise says, say you move from a different country, bring your vehicle, and forget to do the border run while on vacation or something. What could happen to them from a stupid mistake? Would they get arrested? No. I've never heard of anyone getting arrested for missing a border run. So the vehicle was going to have its own problems, right? At some point, you risk maybe having a vehicle impounded or something, getting fines. From a human perspective, if you overstay your visas, the standard charge is $3 per day, and so it's however much you overstay by 3 years, roughly 1,000 days, you're going to owe something like $3,000 at the border in order to go. But it is not it's not an arrestable offense to be over your visa. It is a fine. So. But $3 a day eventually gets annoying. And if there's like a bunch of you, right, that's per person. So there's like 10 of you in a group and you all forget it, suddenly it's $30 a day. It's going to add up after a while. And of course, now the thing you don't want to do is do that, because the thing is not that they're going to arrest you or anything like that. I've never heard of anything like that. And I know a lot of people who've done this, right? I've done this. And it was an honest mistake, and we immediately went and dealt with it, and they're just like... But where it does become a problem is at the point where you want to do a border run or you want to get residency. At that point, they consider your overstays. You overstay 1 day here and there, you're probably going to get overlooked. But if you start doing loads of overstays and you just ignore the system, you truly risk that when you do exit, $3,000, here you go. Wow, that was expensive. You get over the border, you're like, okay, cool. I did my weekend in Costa Rica, I'm heading right back in. And they're like, no, you're not. Nope, this is where the penalty comes in. You're no longer welcome to cross the border, maybe for a year, maybe for forever, right? And maybe they're okay with it. It depends. Everyone's going to have a different situation. That's where you're looking at creating problems, though, is if you're overstaying. It's the natural processes where you're not in trouble, but they have to approve you. Every time you cross the border back in, they're approving you for another half year. Right, or at least for 90 days, and then later they approve you for the next 93 times. But the idea is that border crossing, they have to give you the privilege of coming in, and if you've pushed your luck too much, at some point they stop extending that privilege. So that's why you want to avoid it. But no, the number of things that would get you arrested in this country are extremely few. Obviously, violent crime is going to get you arrested, obviously, but normal things. So first of all, mistakes never end up in arrest. They don't want to be arresting you. That is costly to the government. It has no function. So the U.S., people who come from the U.S. have this, the U.S. makes money on incarcerating people, and it's a cultural thing. The U.S. has an incarceration rate that is mind-boggling to the rest of the world. Nobody's in the same game as the United States. It's crazy. So the U.S. has all these things. They want to incarcerate you for whatever reason, mostly because there's private businesses running a lot of those things. Not all, but there's always people making money on all these things. Nothing's being done for the good of the people. Everything is profitable. Even if it's a government entity, they still do it for profit somewhere along the way. And so there's always this drive to get people into prison, and then there's ways to make money off of them. So the U.S. has this mentality, everything's going to get you arrested. But in most of the world, and Nicaragua for sure, does not use the prisons as a way to make money. They use them as a way to rehabilitate people or punish people or keep them from harming people. And so they don't want to create any scenario where that's going to happen for someone who doesn't need to be there. Marco says, I always include them in meal times. They really do appreciate it. I assume you mean stopping by and... Yeah, when you hire a driver, yeah, I always take my drivers out to eat. My driver goes to fancy restaurants, right? He treats me really well, and I treat him really well. So if we're going someplace, first of all, if I'm eating there, he's always eating there. But sometimes I'll go to a vegan restaurant and be like, oh, I'm going to eat this. Well, there's a steak place across the street. I'll eat here, and then we'll go over there, or vice versa. And he's always like, yes, steak. What e-car am I considering? The BYD Seagull, which is super tiny, $9,500. I want it in the bright green, and I want to have permanently mounted all the camera stuff. So I want it to be my camera car. I want the trunk to have my camera bags in it. So everything has a spot. I just go out, drop everything in, have it ready to go. I want to have mounts for like the 360 cam off the back so I can get like those amazing like pseudo drone shots and like all the different directions and all that kind of stuff. I want interior mounts that are always there for my GoPros facing out and in, so whether I'm doing drive warp or doing my own interviews. And one of the reasons I want electric cars, they're really quiet so that the audio will be much better. Often when I'm driving the Toyota here, like I can't. It's so loud, and because it's got all these terrible, like it's an old car, we bought it used. They treated the window so badly that if I do any video inside, first of all, the car is dirty and torn apart, so it looks horrible. The windows are all like blacked out, so the video just looks awful with weird colors and blurry outsides. When I had a Nissan Quest minivan and lived in the US 6 years ago, and I did, if you look at any of my old videos when I have the GoPro mounted in there, and this is the old GoPro 9, right? It looked beautiful. The light coming in from all the windows gave a nice soft light, and you could see out every window in every direction and see the outside, and it was like a really engaging way to do videos. And since moving here, because the car is such crap, it just isn't any good. So I want this car to be completely outfitted for the purpose of being able to make videos inside the car, outside the car, and having the car be basically a big mobile filming station with just everything I could possibly need ready to go. And of course, I've got a lot of camera mounts that are magnet too, so I want to do something special. I'm going to slam them on the outside of the car or whatever. I want to have it that like the car has like mounts so I can like put the camera on it and film myself from the car. Like there's just a million things that I like to do. Do I have my, oh, I moved it. I normally have one of my magnet cameras sitting right here. Say move. I always have meal times. What e-car? My guide with Tour HQ, October 22nd, embedded guide 24/7. Driver guide translator cost me $100 daily, split between the guide and the agency. I paid for gas, lodgings, and meals for my guide, and he was stellar. Yeah, that's awesome. Like that kind of stuff, very cool, and a great way to go, especially if you want to get to know things. Marco says, and you don't want to land in the Managua jail. It will be the end of you. It's the worst place to be. Are you saying the jail or the prison? The jail shouldn't be that bad. The prison, yeah. I know people who work there, and the stories I'm told, you're forgotten there. If you're being forgotten, I think that's the prison. Right. The jail is like at the police station where they hold you for like overnight kind of thing. Like it's like it's literally just a temporary thing. But the prison... Yes, if you go to the prison and, sure, that's a black hole of despair that you don't want to go down. Same, I mean, the U.S. gets pretty nasty, too. Not a place you want to end up. I'm supposed to have dinner being made. I wonder what the status is. My youngest daughter is making baked mac and cheese, which she does from time to time, but she's trying a new recipe. And I love it when she cooks. It's always very cool. Yes, you meant the prison. Okay, yeah, Marco meant the prison. For sure. The prisons are terrifying. And the expectation is that, like, I've not been in the prison. But I know lots of people who have, honestly. Especially, I find if you live on the beach, you tend to know a lot of people who deal, just because beaches have a lot of people who deal on them. And those people go to prison from time to time. What I can't believe is how often these people are like, yeah, I decided to deal again, and I'm off to prison again. And you're like, isn't that dissuading you from this whole dealing job that you have? Like, this doesn't seem worth it. Like, what are you making, right? Like, $5 here and there? Like, it's not a good job. And that whole going to prison thing is very expensive. And I can't believe it doesn't discourage people more than it does. That's what I'm gonna say. What's the make and model of the electric vehicle you want? That's the BYD Seagull. Here, I'll type it in. Maybe I'll find a picture of it and put it up on the screen. Then everybody can go, ooh, I want to see you film from that. That's a decent picture. All right, cool. We're getting that. Hang in there. Saving the documents. Bring up my screen media manager. I'm gonna replace that. There it is. Boom. All right, it's in my library. Over here. And we're switching over to, this is what I hope to get, and my business partner is already like, yeah, go get that. Like, that's going to be good for us. That is the car I want. It is $9,500 list. And here in the region, they sell them in Costa Rica and they sell them in Mexico. Mexico's like super far, no reason to do that. But Costa Rica is very close. And the range on it is so much that I can make it all the way to like friends' houses in northern Nicaragua without a problem, without recharging the car. So if I need to, I will do that. But my plan is to drive it to Liberia or north of Liberia, stay at a hotel, charge it there, get all packed up, have everything like done, and then drive up the rest of the way, or drive up to Managua and then recharge it there, depending. But it's small, it's electric, and it's probably perfect for me. I love little cars like that. Where is it? Where will I be picking up amps and mic cables? I think I've seen 3 stores online, Facebook, that are in Managua. So honestly, Luke, for amps and mic cables, anywhere. I don't know the actual stores, but you do not have to go into Managua or anything like that. You certainly can. You'll probably get better deals. You have better selection. That's true for absolutely anything. Sorry, oh my gosh, I hurt my back today a lot. I said this earlier. I can't even stand up. So I'm glad this image is on the screen. I have to adjust my chair a little bit. And wow, it's really just a pulled muscle. I didn't like damage anything, so don't everybody be like, oh my gosh, he's dying. No, I'm just old. It feels like when you sleep wrong and then you get up and you're like, oh, that's just really tight. And then after a few minutes, it's okay. It's like that, but it's been like that for hours, so I don't know. But yeah, because music is such a thing here, people are buying mics and amps and cables and all that stuff everywhere all the time. Like I have multiple businesses and they're all stocked with them. My house has that stuff. Like we have it everywhere. You probably can get it just at Radio Shack. It may not be the best place, but you can. I saw a YouTuber, is T-Bone, in Nicaragua that said they ordered a bunch off of Amazon. Heard any updates on Amazon? I mean, what do you want to know about Amazon? Amazon, you order and you send it to a service and you have it shipped in. Like that's the process. Hasn't changed. It's not going anywhere. Amazon is never coming here. That's not going to happen. That damn Caponera messed you up. Yeah, that might be what it is. I may have stumbled and like pulled something, but it just doesn't seem like that's what it is. It kind of feels like a bruise, like a spinal bruise. Nika Man says 9,500 American dollars. Teslas here in the States go for over 60,000. Oh, I know, and they don't look that cool, right? Like seriously, which would you rather have? A Tesla? First of all, Teslas are super political. Like you can be pro, con, whatever. I don't want to drive a vehicle that is a political statement. That is not how I want my car to be. I don't want 50% of police to be angry at the political statement I'm making with my car. Like that is not cool. That's in the US, right? Here, driving a Tesla obviously would be like super in your face, crazy person. And I've never seen one here. They do exist, but I've never seen one. I know someone who has. But Teslas are not a car you buy to be a car. It's a car you buy just to be a political statement. So absolutely, I would not do that as a foreigner anywhere. I wouldn't do it as an American in America. I'm certainly not going to do it as a foreigner. But the BYD is perfect here because it's super cheap. We can buy it almost locally over in Costa Rica. TJ, they never answered me about that. I asked Isabel, and she never got back to me. Let me ask. My wife wasn't around last time. And because I can get it in Costa Rica, getting parts is not that bad. Obviously, I don't normally recommend that. That's a pretty extreme thing. Oh, look, only 9 hours away, you can go pick up parts. But I really want this car. Like this seems like a really good, smart move for what I do. I thought they were mailing direct. No, Amazon cannot ship here. If you want, so all shipping into Nicaragua is custom shipping. So you have to have a Nicaraguan shipper. You can't have an American shipper to get it here. You got to have a Nicaraguan shipper that pulls it in. That's just, no. But there's a lot of systems that make that really easy, right? So it's not that Amazon ships directly, but it's also not that you need to. That would be nicer, obviously. But what you do is you go through, say, Nicabox, and someone just told me about like one click. I'm going to get some information on that. Who was I just talking to? I can't remember who it was, but just the other day I got to ask them. They were supposed to send me the link. There's a place that they said was really good like that. But anyway, you just have like a box, an address in Miami. You just ship it to there, and they take it. They wait for like a couple days in case you have multiple things. They put it in a box, and then they bring it to Nicaragua. And then Transnica is the internal shipping company like FedEx, and they bring it to your door. So it's easy. There's a little bit of extra cost, a little bit of extra delay, but it totally works and it's not a big deal. And when you live here and like life is so much cheaper and life is so much easier, then then that as a pain point is not a thing at all. Like none of us think about like, oh no, it's so terrible. When you first get here and you don't have Amazon, you're like, what do I do? But once you're here, like we forget that you can just go on Amazon and order things. And then the other thing we do is anytime we do go to the States, like I have to go renew my driver's license, just keeps getting pushed off. I will have a box of tons of stuff that I've ordered, like any cable I need, any specialty microphone. Like I'm always coming back with a new microphone, right? Like that's how I do the show. And so I have Amazon do that. I have it all waiting, and then I just bring it back that way. So there's a couple different ways to do it, but yeah, no, they're not sending direct. That's for sure. Tom McKeon. Scott, you're such an inspiration. Thank you. I am doing all I can to convince my family of 7 to move to Nicaragua. That's a lot to convince. I'm a small software sales exec stuck in corporate hell, and the allure is growing by the day. Oh, 7 people is a lot to move down, but it's also a lot of people to benefit from the move as well. I mean, we moved 5 down plus 2 dogs, so I mean, we're a family of 7 when you think of it that way. The move for us, we were lucky. We had lived all over. We had spent some time here. So my wife had this she always has this I miss Nicaragua feeling going on. And when I was like, we can live on the beach. And she's like, beach? Did I hear beach? And so we moved like that. Like, wait, we can work less, take home more, live on a beach? Done. Patricia says, the car is small. Oh, it's very small, but I like really small cars. I've owned some really tiny cars, like a Chevy Spark in the past. I love that stuff. But electric is so much better because you don't have that power problem. But it looks like you could fit 2 big poodles in the back seat, so I approve. Yes. Someone got locked in their Tesla in the sun while it was doing a software update a couple of weeks ago. Oh my gosh! Fortunately, the software update completed before they passed out. Yeah, there is, some things. I've been in Teslas when they were new and they were so cool to drive, but so many problems now. I realize that when you sell 1 million cars, you start to have problems, but they have problems that no other car company has, right? Like I've seen them where they put a mannequin in the road and the thing comes to a stop and then just pulls the accelerator to the floor and kills the fake person, and where it just suddenly takes control and does crazy things, or, doesn't the doors don't open. Like I'm not willing to have a car where I can't control the door. Like that's a hard no. And they're so far behind on so much tech. Like it's supposed to be the worst self-driving. Like everyone's gonna have self-driving, and Tesla's still trying to figure out how to hold the lane. No. Absolutely not. And that the U.S. has to have 100% tariffs on competing car companies to give Tesla the ability to sell anything. I'm way too much of a free market capitalist for that stuff. Like it makes me so upset. Companies like Tesla and Hershey's using market pressure in the United States to stop their competition from being able to get to the U.S. consumers. Because if American consumers could get good electric cars or good chocolate, like those companies would have nothing to sell. They only make money because they have a monopoly on a market where there's other companies, there's competitors, but they can't get to you. Now, of course, here in Nicaragua, it's hard for companies to get to you too, but you're allowed to get whatever. Like there's no limitation on what you can import. You just have to go out, find it, and go through the pain of importing it, but you can certainly do it. Car insurance price, basic, any idea? Courtney, I actually don't know. I have car insurance, but I don't pay it. So I'm completely in the dark. I don't want to guess at it. Do you know of any place in this is Denise? Do you know of any place in Nicaragua to do missionary work? No, I don't know of any place, and I will tell you that you want to be super careful doing that. Anything that is so if you're purely volunteering, right? Like I'm just here to shovel dirt for something. You're generally okay. Once you join an organization, especially if you're coming from the United States, and you do organized nonprofit work, the majority of that stuff is illegal. What remains, now I'm not saying that whoever's still here is illegal. Like most is gone. Those that remain are under extremely tight scrutiny, and so it is not, because nonprofits have been the primary path. This is true in most countries, right? Nonprofits create a lot of problems worldwide. They're horrible in the United States, right? Like I work in the business space. Every time you work with a nonprofit, you just know that it's money laundering. Every time you deal with them, they're stealing money here, stealing money there, stealing money from the that's what they do, right? So countries that are trying to protect their citizens are really wary of nonprofits. Doesn't matter if it's religious or not, just anyone who's not making profit and they're not showing the books and they're not doing normal business stuff becomes a very hard to monitor and very dangerous, because the organizations where they came from originally are typically not scrutinizing their books, or worse, they are. And so if you want to do missionary work, obviously you can go volunteer places and do stuff, but just be super, super careful, because any nonprofit organization, if it's purely volunteers with no company behind it, there's no money moving around, nothing like that, then you should be no problem at all. But once you have an organization that is not taking profit, but is moving money between countries, then you start to run into risk. That's when you start getting into, this is very likely someone who's going to be on the radar. So just be very cautious with how you approach that. Luke says, something to be said for physical and air-gapped switches and handles. Yes. I don't mind that it can open the door for me. I mind that it can not open the door for me. That's where it's from. KCS, please tell me you're considering getting that sweet BYD Seagull lifted with tread tires so you have more clearance. The main roads here are so good, but there's still places that won't allow it. Oh, I know. Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh, it's really low. I'm going to have to see how it does. It may have to be lifted, which, I'm going to have multiple vehicles. We're talking about getting like a big SUV. So this really is my running to the beach. So most of you know, I live 12 miles from the beach on a perfectly smooth, absolutely flawless road. There's no potholes. There's no nothing. It is gorgeous, easy. The city that I live in, almost always easy to get around. I can get from here to Managua, perfectly flat roads, nothing. And here to Chinandega, here to Matagalpa, here to Esteli, here to San Juan del Sur Rivas. I can get all the way to Ometepe. All that stuff, no problem at all. Zero bad roads. So I can do a lot with this little car. Plus I can go all around Managua, all to Granada, Masaya, Jinotepe, San Marcos, Didiamba, El Crucero, all that stuff. I can go out to the Pochamil, all those beaches. We're in great shape. Very, very few places where you're going to have any problems. But there are definitely places where they can't go. But I will have an alternative car, and so there you go. Have a family that have big Volkswagen SUV electric car. Okay, that's cool. They had to put in charger for $8,000 in-house and another in the cottage. Had to wait close to 2 years for it to come from Germany. Yeah, that's Chinese stuff. That's the way to go. What will the importation tax be on a 10K car? It's from T-Bone. There's no importation tax. As a resident, which I'm not, but I will be, hopefully in a few weeks, I get a car for free. That is the reason that it makes it so attractive, is that we're probably going to buy one car in country and then use the import to get an electric that we can't get here. Generally, we just want to buy them in country. Like, it's cheaper. Like, there's so much less hassle. But you do get, as a resident, this ability to bring in a car. The idea is not to make it make sense for you to import a new car. The idea is that you already own one, you can bring it, and they're not going to penalize you, and they'll make money when you eventually sell it in country. In this particular case, I'm trying to get something really unique. It should work out. Really, I should just pay the tax on it. It's so cheap that I want to save my tax credit for something else. But no, there's the expectation is I'll have no tax. Marco says, I want to make videos in Nicaragua, but don't want to lose my drone. Yes, a lot of people bring in drones and do fine, right? I'm not condoning that. I'm not saying that's a good idea. Just be aware that that was a lot of stuff in my kitchen just falling right there. Legally, drones are not allowed, right? So if you cross a border with it, they're expected to seize it. Of course, a lot of people sneak them in. You see drone shots around the country. You'll see drone shots on my show tomorrow. I did not take them. Someone sent them to me. So I get to use them, but it certainly wasn't me. I am way too high visibility. I cannot own a drone unless I get permission. And I cannot get permission. Trust me, I've tried. What I've been told by people who are relatively high officials is that they could, in theory, potentially, maybe get me permission to get a drone in. Maybe. Very much a stretch, but maybe. But what they can't do is protect me from the police taking it, because the police shoot them down and then deal with anything else. So you could lose your drone even after you have it. Now, if you own a large piece of land and you're just flying a drone around your own land, the cops don't come on your land. The cops don't come bother you. So while what you're doing isn't technically legal, you also probably are completely safe. If you are flying a drone around, a beach and you're out on the water, they're not really looking for that stuff. You're often going to get away with it. A lot of real estate agents do a lot of questionable things. They tend to get away with it, but they're just shooting a house. Like, they're very, very limited. So they often get away with it, and they know they're taking risks. And everyone who does it has some stories of losing stuff from time to time. So, but if you want to go out and like film Nicaragua, then you're upping your risk more and more. You're going to go downtown Leon, you're going to fly a drone above the plaza. Nope, I'm going to say your chances of losing that drone approach is 95%, right? You're going to fly it around the barrios, it's going to be around 50%. That's 50% every time you fly it, not 50% over the lifetime of the drone. So I am going to keep pursuing, trying to find some way to get permission. If I had permission, I would kind of put up with the police maybe shooting at it. Because as long as I'm not in trouble, I'd be like, well, I take my risks, but it's only the drone, and I'm in trouble. Like, I don't want to get in trouble. That would make me unhappy. So James says duty is 40 or 50% on a car, but yeah, if you're bringing it in without the residency, bypass. Marcus says thanks. KCS says, Courtney, basic car insurance, $12 per month for tourists, approximately $50 to $60 per month for residents through Inisur. And Marco says, I don't know what's in reference to. Might be the shooting down the drone. But yeah, drones are not allowed here. So, how many have I seen flying? I've seen 2 or 3 times someone flying a drone. Every time it was like, oh yeah, no, that's clearly a government drone. That's filming for like a new television station or something. It is a great way to use the car import tax credit, right? Like, I have nothing else to use it on. I don't have any car to bring in, so it's like, oh, I could have this amazing electric car that's like super cool. Yeah, absolutely. Are they the electric car manufacturer that has battery change stations as opposed? No, I don't know who that is, but it's not them. Someone is doing that. The thing is, we don't have those here, so that would be cool. I like that as an idea. I've been a proponent of that for like 25 years, but but we have none of those. But we do have fast charging stations that we can charge at home, and of course you can have solar, you can have wind, you can do all these different things, and of course our power in the grid is mostly coming from hydroelectric and geothermal. So even if you do pay for it, we have green power. We're not burning carbon to get our fuel or our electric. So it's nice to have. T-Bone says, can you get a phone SIM card at the airport on arrival? I certainly believe so. Or anything close by the Best Western across the airport. Yes, you definitely can get it close by. I believe you can get it in the airport. I've never tried to actually buy it in the airport. But all you want to do is go to any Tigo or Claro, and I'm not promoting one over the other until one decides to be a sponsor of the channel. But I have Tigo currently. I have Claro at home. Like, they work great. They're both good, and the same prices, same features. Like, really, I don't know how people differentiate between them. I think people who like the color blue pick one, and people who like the color red pick the other, or people who like Europe pick one, and people who like Mexico pick the other. Like, I got nothing as far as how to differentiate them. But most of the places will sell the SIM cards about $3. It's probably gone up. It's probably like $4, and it comes with like a day or two on it, and then a charge. I recharge all the time. It's 200 cord, which is like $6. It's less, but it's basically $6 for a 15-day recharge, which is totally the best deal. Just do that. But yeah, they near the airport for sure. They will sell them all over the place. Gas stations, pulperias. Go into the Best Western and just ask them. They'll point you to someone. But I bet you can get it in the airport before you leave, and definitely that'll be the easiest if you can. Just look for the Tigo and Claro signs. They'll be everywhere. T-Bone says, nope, already said that. Patricia says, I was watching some really nice Nicaraguan drone footage on TikTok earlier. It does exist, and sometimes it's really cool. I really wish I had one. I have to convince Intour that it's worth doing whatever it takes for them to do, but I actually don't know of a single person in the country who has a license. There's one company I've heard of, and it's like LG. It's a big Korean conglomerate, has a license, and they're only allowed to operate it on their property. It's so that they can monitor their own factory. It's like for, and they had a lawyer do a bunch of work for it. So it's quite hard. Do you think the police will really shoot down a drone? I mean, it was the police who said they were going to shoot down the drone. That seems very dangerous. It's not super dangerous, right? Because a drone is up in the air and off in the middle of nowhere. What internet provider do I recommend? From Mario. So it depends what you're doing. But if you're at home and you want really good internet, I use Teco. That's how I'm able to do a live stream that looks like this, right? Also because I have a Fuji and a Black Magic Atom board. But the consistent, high-speed, excellent stability fiber is from Teco, and they are amazing. They're amazing on the quality of the service. They're also excellent on the customer service. If they have to come out and deal with anything, I've never dealt with an ISP that was so good for customer service. I really like Optimum Online in the New York City area. They're an excellent overall ISP, I think, but Teco here, they are fantastic. Most people don't use them at home. They are a price premium over other carriers. You're going to get, if you're just like, I just want to watch Netflix, send some emails, surf the web, I don't care about anything, and I'll give up a little bit of reliability. Claro is probably the way to go, cable to the house. You'll get, service between $35 and $50, and they'll be fine. Like, they're not bad. Like, I'm not trying to say that they're not good, but Teco is so completely awesome. I have 5 properties of my own that I pay for the internet, and I pay for Teco at all of them. And I'm about to put in a 6th pretty soon. And hopefully more. And everyone I do business with, they all put in Tecos. So we have a lot of Teco, and it's also nice having a lot of Teco, because when I call Teco, they know who I am. I don't have to, they'll come to my house and be like, oh, yeah, I was over at your apartment. I was over at your hotel. Nicaragua has geothermal power grid here. I see the windmills and solar, but can you expand on the geothermal, please? Yeah. So we've had it for a long time, and actually a buddy of mine is here because he came 15 years ago, 20 years ago. He's a geothermal power plant engineer. He doesn't do the cool parts of geothermal power plant engineering, so before you're like, oh my gosh, that's the coolest job ever. He does the power couplings, not the geothermal portions of it, but he's a power plant engineer. That's why he's here. So quite some time ago, yes, you're definitely going to see. Mary said, is Teco available in Ometepe? I do not know. That's a good question. I'll try to look into that. I don't know how I can. I'm not sure how I can find that out. Very good chance that they are not. If you did want to put in a large service, they probably would run it out there. But there's every possibility that there isn't. There's every possibility that there is. They are the only super high-end serious fiber provider for the country. So there is a lot of tourists out there. I could see them wanting to do it, but someone has to run an underwater cable to do any of those things. So we have a ton of solar here because the sun never goes away. We have a ton of wind power here because the wind just whipping across Lago Nicaragua is crazy. So we have all these already existing green power things. But a long time ago, 20 years ago, they said, what we have in endless abundance is volcanoes. And so the first one, I believe, is at Puerto Mombatumbo, the Mombatumbo Power Generation Station, and they have this giant power plant. There's another one up in the middle of the Volcano Row. I don't know how many there are. I know of 2 for sure, 2 giant facilities. I believe there's more, and I know that there's a new one they're breaking ground on. So they're the main power generators, and then them along with the Jinotega hydroelectric plant also produces a lot. But most everything is to offset in case there's anything that happens. As far as I understand, I don't know everything about the power grid, but I know we provide power to 7 countries, and if we didn't have geothermal, we wouldn't be able to do that. Those are big power generation facilities, and more going in. Yeah, Patricia says, yeah, Paul Damon had drone footage in his real estate videos. Yes, he did. He was not exactly a person who followed the law in any way whatsoever, or ethics, or anything else. But yeah, he had ways to get drone footage. A lot of the real estate agents, I mean, and you have to, be realistic. If you do real estate as a living, you're actually getting paid to do it. I like showing people's houses, but I don't make any money if people, like, the number of times, like, I basically sold a house today, and the agent's like, oh, I owe you a finder's fee or something. I'm like, I don't take any money from that. Like, I don't want to be financially influenced to tell people about houses, or to tell certain people about certain houses, or to make them more expensive than they are, or anything. Like, I don't want any involvement. So I don't take finder's fees. I don't take a percentage. I don't get involved in the buying or selling of houses except my own. But I love showing houses. I love, so like tomorrow we're going to go out to Tesoro. We're going to walk through a house. I don't have the price. I'm going to post the link to the Tesoro guys. If you want to talk to them and buy a house, just contact them, right? Let them know to, watch the channel more, promote the channel, whatever. Like, awesome. But there's no money changing hands, no financial incentive to do that stuff, right? They gave us coffee and breakfast for coming out, right? They sent a driver, but not getting paid. But if you were a real estate agent, if you're like, that's all Paul and his wife do, is do real estate. So they have to do anything they can to make money, and having drone footage is stuff that people expect, especially if you're putting stuff online to try to sell and trying to show property. So, you can imagine that they would take their chances, and even if they lost several drones doing it, so one, they're doing it on real estate that they have control of, presumably, so the risk is relatively low, and two, they're making money off of it. So like, if they sold a house once a year, it pays for bringing in a couple drones and taking your chances. So I don't make any money from doing that stuff. So if I'm going to bring in a drone, one, I'm going to bring in a nice drone. They're bringing in cheap drones. Right, they're bringing in old, beat up $200-$300 drones, but I'm bringing in, wow, TJ, thank you. That's amazing. They're bringing in cheap drones, right? Because they just have to show like real estate. They just need to get like 720p and have it be kind of stable. If I'm gonna, I do a 4K channel, not for the live stream, but we're a gorgeous channel a lot of the time. And even if it's just me in the garden, I try to make it look good. But if I'm out doing something, it's got to look good. And if I'm bringing in a drone, we're going to be using it for This is Nicaragua, not just this, right? Like, the vlog is fun, but we're going to use it for that. And so I'm bringing in like a $1,000 to $2,000 drone minimum. Like, that's the starting point. And losing that for me is just losing $2,000. And then I can't do that footage. For them, they can bring one in every few months, having people smuggle in old broken down ones and just keep them around. Oh, one got shot down, one got confiscated, one broke, right? Well, we just put it in another because that's how they're making their money. So I don't, I don't think it's weird that they do that. They're just, they're taking their chances. And those real estate agents, they're always on the radar of getting in trouble for one thing or another. TJ says, what's the cost of electricity in Granada? High. I don't know the per watt. When I lived in Granada, I lived downtown. So I'm going to give some background here in a second. But when I lived downtown, it was just the four of us, my wife and I and our two kids. We basically didn't have air conditioning. We had 2 bedrooms that did have air conditioning, and they were like, you can't run. Like, the power grid can't handle it. You get 15 minutes per day. Like, that was it. So they're like, right before you go to bed, turn it on, bring down the temperature, and go to bed. Like, that's it. So we didn't have air conditioning, and our electric was $450 a month. We've lived in Laborio, and I think we were paying like $150 a month, but we had a bunch of air conditioning. We live here. We have 9 bedrooms. Most of them are air conditioned. My office is air conditioned. You can't see it, but right up here is air conditioning. I have it. I only do this, I swear, during the live show. It is set to 76 because I have spotlights on me, and I really feel the heat. And I have all these hats that keep me warm. So I have to have it cooler. Plus, it keeps the camera cool. The camera will overheat sometimes. So all of that, I need it cool. But normally, I keep it set to like 80 during the day if I'm working. But with all of our different bedrooms having it, the office has it, our video game room has air conditioning. Our monthly is about $80. My apartment down the road has 2 air conditioners. It's a very small apartment. As an apartment goes, it's a decent size. But it's just a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment that's maybe, I don't know, maybe 100 square feet at most, larger than a normal apartment. max, right? And maybe not even that much, maybe 50 square feet bigger. It's just has a normal second bedroom. The bathroom is quite small. I do not like the bathroom in it. The master is fantastic. It is 1.5 times a normal Nicaraguan bedroom for sure. The living room is just a tad bigger than a normal living room. The kitchen's normal. That's about it. It has a nice backyard, but you don't air condition that. And both bedrooms air conditioned. And if you open both bedroom doors and close everything else in the house, you can air condition the whole place using the 2 air conditioners. And there we rarely get above $10 a month. Now we don't run the air conditioning around the clock or anything, but we do use it when it's there. It's cranked. But in all cases, power in every bit of Nicaragua is so variable. It is so hard to tell you what the cost is, because the cost per kilowatt is a very minor part of the overall picture. Some places have flat rate. Sometimes it's like an individual place is flat rate. Sometimes an area is flat rate. Different parts of the city have different pricing per kilowatt. The way that they bill it is different. Do they actually read the meter? Is it an estimado? There's so many variables that just being in different parts of the same neighborhood in Granada, you may end up with a few dollars or a few $100s. And some people are topping 1,000, but very rarely. And you also have the problem that as you use the power, the price changes. So if you start off and you're using extremely little, you're gonna be like $3. This is nuts, because all you have is a light bulb and that's it. And then suddenly you turn on an air conditioner and it's $800, and you're like, what? What? And it's because at some tier they treat you as if you're poor and you get subsidized. And at some point you're treated as if you're rich and you do the subsidizing. And so it can flip pretty quickly depending on what you're doing. So that is a big factor in that. And unfortunately, it's very unpredictable. I had that one place and it was very expensive. But other than that, everywhere I've lived in Nicaragua has been extremely cheap. And then people have argued with me, and I get their point. They're like, but look at your kilowatt hours. Your per kilowatt is more expensive than the US. I'm like, yes. But when I lived in the US, my power bill was between $250 and $800 in Texas. And I couldn't keep my house cool. It was unbearable to be in my house. And here in Nicaragua, I'm able to keep it very comfortable, air conditioned all the time, and my bill is $80. And when I lived in the United States, I had, fewer people, and here I have much more space. I understand that we have more efficient air conditioners here, and there's a few little things that are different, but clearly the kilowatts are not telling you the whole picture, and so you're really going to have to spend time in any given place and figure out what the power situation is going to be like there, because it's just all over the place with very little predictability. I have no idea why our apartment always seems to be 10. I have no idea why this place always seems to be 80-ish, but we definitely vary. It's not like a flat rate. It's like, there's definitely been times we hit 60, but we were like not here. And then we definitely have times we're hitting like 90 something. We're never hitting 100. We're never hitting 50. So what keeps it in this and what makes it swing? Obviously how much we use, but why? How's it being measured? I don't know. But what I know is they're definitely not doing a direct conversion of kilowatts used to dollars, even though there is a stated amount and a tiering system. Even with all that complexity, there's more going on. I just don't know what it is. And my family actually hasn't made dinner yet. I don't know what's going on. They said there's some corn, but they haven't made the mac and cheese. So I'm still here. I do have to finish editing that one last video for tomorrow. But all the others are up. So doing pretty well on that. Juliet says, sorry, just to clarify, it was $450 a month in Granada and just $80 in Leon. To be clear, about $150 in Leon. I live on the outskirts. I'm technically in the barrio, so I wouldn't call this Leon for pricing, but in the Leon area. When I lived in Granada, I lived downtown in the tourist zone, so the most expensive possible place in one of the most expensive cities. Now I live in one of the cheapest cities in one of the cheapest barrios. So there's a lot more to that equation than just Granada versus Leon. But yes, those numbers are correct. TJ says my maximum bill in the US has been $860. Ha, fool paying all that money. The maximum I ever paid in the US was $850. True story. But it says, does the power company have a service to check usage? They do. And we've had at times where they're like, oh, we don't think your power's right. And we're like, okay, come out and check it. And they've come out and checked it and said, no, it's right. And then that was it. So we've been audited, or we asked for the audit, or so. No. My neighbor asked for the audit. We have a funny relationship with our neighbor. Sometimes he's super annoyed with us, and sometimes we're super annoyed with him. He definitely has caused problems, and he doesn't like that we pay for our own security because they don't want security. Like, I have two neighbors, they don't want security, and we do. So we have security, and then they're like, they want to use our security. Not just to keep them secure. Like, obviously it keeps them secure, they're going to protect them. But they're like, we want your security to, like, open the gate for us and do stuff. And we're like, that's not their job. Like, we offered for you to pay for them. Like, if you want them to work, by all means, pay your third and we're good to go. We don't even, like, we'll pay 2/3 and you pay 1/3. That's good. If the other person doesn't want to do it, like, we'll cover it. But we're not going to give you service for free. Why would you ever pay if we're going to give it to you for free? So sometimes we have this weird relationship, and sometimes he gets pissed and calls us and is like, you know, and then other times he comes over and he's like, oh, I love your channel. You're so awesome. You're making such a difference for the country. And I'm like, who are you? You're all over the place. No, he's generally a nice guy. But yeah, so we've been audited, and it came in really cheap. KCS says paid $4,700 for solar system. 240 converter and inverter installation included, 6 panels, 4 gel batteries, 1 year in, and it's working great. Just to be clear, KCS, you're saying in Nicaragua. Can you let us know who you used? I would love to know, because we certainly want to put in solar, not where we are because I rent, but we're building, and we definitely want to put in solar. We want to be able to run, at least in some places, air conditioning like crazy, like just like my office. My office needs to be air conditioned like crazy because of the computers. Like, I just can't go to open air because of the dust and the salt. So it's important in some cases. So having solar and doing that is something we want to do when we make the investment in a really dedicated place. James Barajas says, Scott, I always have a hard time reconciling the stories I hear about folks being exiled from Nicaragua, such as Shana's Palacios. I'm terrible at pronouncing her family, that I heard about, and her family that I heard about this week, and your experience of day-to-day living in Nicaragua is that as long as you keep a low profile, so let's just be really clear, I have the highest profile you could possibly imagine in the country. Like I do not keep a low profile. The government, leave you alone. How do you make sense of the disconnect? So I don't have all the details, right? One thing I can tell you is whatever news you're getting in the United States is beyond inaccurate. Like, the amount of it makes no sense. Right, so these stories of, there's all these people being, so this is one very specific person that I do not know the story of. I know who you're talking about, like I know who that person is. I know nothing about the situation. But in general, when the United States talks about people being exiled from Nicaragua, they're being very, very misleading. So first of all, the United States deports people all the time, and we don't have the same conversation about the United States deporting people. But they do. So a lot of the people who have been exiled from Nicaragua, and so I'm not going to get political, I'm not going to dig into individual stories, but what I do know is that the United States, so this is about the U.S., reports regular deportations as exiles. They take people who are foreign citizens, foreign residents, not citizens, citizens of a foreign country, people who are in Nicaragua for whatever reason. They do something that gets them in some pretty big trouble, and they're no longer given a tourist visa or residency. And they got to go. That's not exiling. I guess you can call it that. You can call it anything you want, right? But it's just normal, everyday, you're not being given residency. So the United States does this all the time. Canada does this all the time. Mexico does this all the time. Everyone does this. The U.S. is taking words and describing normal, everyday deportations in Nicaragua as exiling, as if it's bad. But if you have people who you don't want to stay, so does the U.S. have immigrants at the border? If so, aren't they just all exiled from the United States? Isn't that what's going on? So it's a very weird word to use for that. Okay, so that's some people. Other people, there are people who've committed some pretty serious crimes in any country. Most countries do not give options. They say, you are going to go to prison. So we talked about this earlier. The United States loves making money off of people in prison. They love, even, how often do you see stories where someone has been proven innocent, that they're illegally incarcerated, that the court didn't do what they were supposed to do, or evidence was withheld, or whatever. They prove that they're innocent, and then they still don't let them out of prison. because they make money on being in prison. So they actually make being in prison something that can happen when you're not a criminal in the U.S. Even once you're known not to be a criminal, they can keep you in prison, sometimes for life. Not very often. Generally, they get you out, but it can happen. Like the U.S. has these pretty crazy processes because they love having people in prison, right? Only because it makes money, not because they're actually mean. They're just willing to have people in prison. Right, okay, whatever. The United States is never going to go to a person in prison and say, okay, look, I know you committed this crime, but you're a hardship on the country, because they're making money. We're going to give you the option of just not coming back. Nicaragua actually did this. They had people who committed crimes, or they got convicted of crimes. They were given prison sentences. And then they worked out a deal with the United States because the United States wanted these criminals you can make your own opinion as to whether the courts correctly convicted them, right? That's your opinion. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't even know what the charges are, right? All I know is that these are people who were going to prison under normal circumstances. And then when given the unbelievable option of self-exiling, they obviously chose it because the United States is like, yeah, come to the U.S., right? Now, I know that most of them were probably not convicted for this, but suspected of being foreign agents, right? Which is a major crime, but difficult to prove. That the U.S. accepted people who were being incarcerated for a crime and said, no, just come to the United States, really suggests that the United States had sent them there, which is itself an admission of a crime. Sort of. It's not actually an admission of a crime. It's a suggestive admission of a crime. But that is not being exiled. That is exiling themselves. They left voluntarily without a permission to come back to get out of prison. It was a get out of prison free card. So the United States has been pushing these stories of, they're being exiled. Not being exiled. I know of no one I'm certainly not knowledgeable of this, right? So grain of salt. I'm in no way a definitive resource. I've not looked into individual people. But we know that people were given a pure option to get out of jail if they agreed to leave the country. It is never a punishment. By definition, it cannot be a punishment to be given a option to lesser the punishment you've already gotten. Now, if you want to argue or consider that their initial punishment was too harsh, going to prison was too harsh, okay, that's a reasonable discussion. Absolutely, maybe it was. You'd have to look at the individual cases. But that they were given an option once they were incarcerated that said, you know what? We're going to let you choose if you want, only if you want. You're going to get this get out of jail free card, literally, and then most of them took it because it was a super awesome deal. Any news that presents that as anything but Nicaragua being lenient and gracious is obviously manipulating its people, because there is no possible way to paint that as anything but being really, really lenient. Imagine the United States saying, we have a whole bunch of people we caught. They're from the Mexican drug cartels, and you know what we decided? We decided that our prison system is very tough on them, and wouldn't they be happier back with their families in Mexico? As long as they promise not to come back, we're just going to let Mexico have them. Imagine the U.S. saying that after they caught people, smuggling drugs into the country. That would never happen, right? And I'm not saying it should happen. That's too lenient, right? If these people are truly a problem, I would hesitate to let them go, right? Can you trust that they're really not going to come back? But that's it's not my choice to make. It's not my position to have an opinion on why they're being so lenient, why they're so easy on foreign criminals. But that is the position that Nicaragua has taken. And so actually, I think when you hear the stories, other than I don't know anything about this one specific person or her family or what happened this week. I'm not even aware that something happened this week. Nothing. But when you're hearing these stories, I think you should be hearing, wow, this is exactly the Nicaragua that Scott is experiencing. This is a place that bends over backwards to take care of people. This is, yes, they have to protect their citizens from people who are doing something terrible, but if they really feel those people are not going to be an ongoing danger to people or not going to be able to whatever it is they're doing wrong, and they can move them out to another place, then, well, let's let them go. Let's not have them be a burden on our society, and let's not punish them for maybe they were misled by their government. Maybe they were paid to do something. I don't know. I have no idea why. But you can imagine in a country that wants to do the right thing, that's trying to protect its people, this is actually a behavior that it's hard to imagine. But this is what, mercy looks like. This is, if you want to look at it from a religious perspective, what would Jesus do, right? Would Jesus say, no, you have to be punished absolutely no matter what? It's the punishment is the value, right? We relish the punishment. No, that is not what Jesus would say. And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to make a religious statement in any way whatsoever. I'm saying that if you were to adhere to like this principle of do what Jesus would do, what would Buddha do? What would name your gracious religious instructor? How would they approach this stuff? They would say, absolutely protect the innocent from criminals, right? You got to. That is a mandate. But once you go past that point, saying, you know what, let's find a way to protect the innocent, but also not unnecessarily punish the people who did this, especially if they've learned their lesson or they're not going to do it again, or we can simply guarantee it's not going to happen again. Great, then there you are, right? That's I really don't find it hard to reconcile the two different, because I don't think they are that different from what I've heard, right? And also there, of course, in the U.S., there's a lot of stories of people being exiled, and then you're like, is this a real person? Like, we're at a point where the stories coming out of the U.S. are so absurd in how they portray Nicaragua that it stops being a thing we even think about, right? A great example. And it's a good question. Like, I totally get this, James. I know why. Like, I've seen the U.S. news. I lived in the U.S. for a long time. So I totally understand why this seems weird. And how, and then you can go look at other news from other places, right? And you're like, wow, no, the U.S. is harsher, but it's similar. And then you come here and you're like, how is that the news? How are they reporting that so often? But I'm here on the ground. And so these things, like someone being exiled, is a really difficult one because I don't know that person. I don't know what their charges were. I don't know why they were caught. I don't know what their sentence was. I don't know what their what plea deal they made to get that exile option, right? Like it's very specific and it's very opaque. In most cases, I will be honest, I do know at least one of those people, like basically firsthand, and it was very much a insanely serious crime. He absolutely did it, and he definitely should have expected to spend not life, a long time in jail. He was not a completely terrible person who was looking to murder people, not like that. This was not a person who was intentionally trying to hurt people. This was a person who was misled and willing to be an extreme criminal on a massive scale to do damage to people, but not to hurt human life, right? So he was looking at, say, a decade in prison that he needed some time to sit and think about his actions. Yes, right? The U.S., it would have been done. He would have never seen the light of day again. But in a civilized country, right, we're looking at 10 years, 15 years, enough time for him to really cool down and think about what he's doing. That was absolutely needed to happen. And then I know he was given an exile option, and he took it because why go to prison for a country you don't even like, right? Which was part of the issue. So many of these people, they're in these positions because they don't like it here, and they're here to do harm of some sort, or that is the presumption. So it's very easy to see them jumping at exile options. It's not like Nicaraguans who are like, but this is my home. These are people who are like, I didn't even like this place. I came here for a job, whatever, and getting paid from a foreign entity or whatever. So you see that. Now, all that said, and I'm going to get to these other questions in a second, is we did a video, and this is 2 years ago. We did one at the Corn Festival in Matagalpa. And it was at the height of this. The U.S. News was saying that there was militarized streets. Police were everywhere. Everyone was being rounded up. You couldn't be out in public. It was super dangerous. All the churches were closed and all Catholics were being arrested. That it was full on Catholic Holocaust. Right, that's what was being reported. Every news outlet was reporting this. It was everywhere in the United States. And then, of course, here we're ignoring it because we know it's silly. But we're up in Matagalpa, and I'm walking around with the GoPro, and I spent hours because I love walking Matagalpa, right? It's a beautiful city, great hills and everything. And there's police every so often on a corner. I'd walk by and smile and talk to the police. You know, I didn't talk to them. I waved to the police, put them on camera because they don't care if they're on camera in most cases. And then we got to, going past churches, and you can see religious processions going on, and you can see the churches with people in them at mass, and you can see like all this stuff going on, and there's no military on the streets, there's no police on patrol, there's the normal police on corners here and there because like it's a city, you have police, and nothing was weird was going on. No one approached me, no one asked me to stop filming, and I did hours. I walked and walked and walked, so there was no way to hide this. Like I'm crossing downtown, I'm at the cathedral, and like all kinds of things, and people started writing to me, and they're like, this, I don't understand. The United States is showing like people like open fire between military groups on the streets, and they're showing people being rounded up. They're saying like no Catholic can show their face on the street. But these people are going to church as if nothing's happened. And we're like, right? Because nothing's happened. There is nothing like that happening. It's not like something happened and they blew it out of proportion. There was literally nothing to base anything on. It's completely made it up. And I was talking to someone just the other day, and he said that one time he was up north in the country in a very small village, and the chances of this is very, very little. And he was up in like a bar, and the bar had CNN on, and on CNN was some story about an active firefight as rebels and military were fighting over a village in Nicaragua. And the guys looked at each other, and they looked out the windows, and they looked at the TV, and they're like, they're showing the street in front of here, supposedly. Like, they're in the place that they're supposed to be showing, and they're like, but it's just a sunny day with kids playing in the street. Like, there's nothing at all. It was 100% fabricated live while they were sitting there and could look out the windows. That's actually what it's like here. Once in a while, like most of the news is kind of like based on something, but once in a while we actually get news stories like this that are so completely fabricated that we're like, this is just, it's insane, right? So be very aware that that's happening here, but that implies it's happening with everywhere, right? The news that you're getting in the United States is quite frankly just almost entirely fake, it seems. There's so much that it's very hard to know where even to find the thread of the original truth in many cases. But yeah, so that is what we have discovered here directly. TJ says, am I down to TJ? No. James, 24% electrical capacity. That must be on the solar. That's awesome. James Barajas says, thank you for sharing your point of view. My pleasure. Thanks for asking the question. Like it's a very good question. TJ Bailey says, I'm looking at short-term rentals in Granada, and I'm worried about getting ripped off with the power bill. Very common. Some of them say 50 per kilowatt. I will be using the AC at night. What you can do in some cases is pay the power bill. That's not uncommon. Good places will often let you pay the power bill. If they don't let you pay the power bill, find out exactly how it's measured, how you can monitor it and stuff. Because I know people who have been ripped off big time because people have, like the owner is running their own air conditioning off your meter. There's very little you can do to monitor that in a place you don't own. KCS, Edwin Sotomayor, ESC Company, Managua. Unfortunately, I cannot recommend him. Long story short, he drove up 3 times, only partially installing the system and asking for more funds outside of our contract. Oh, for the solar. That sucks. Strung us along for months beyond our 30-day contract, and we had to go legal to get him to finish the job. Sadly, a common thing. I'm glad it works, but he was not fun to work with. That's too bad. Buddhist, I'm looking into Alibaba to import a solar system. Buddhist, I want to know about that because that's definitely something that I'm interested in. I've never used Alibaba. I want to know exactly how that works because absolutely, let's do that. For those who don't know, we're neighbors. So we're gonna put him on the show soon. He's not here right now, but we're gonna get him on the show. He and I are going for a hike. We're going up one of the mountains that we have not been able to show on the show because it's roped off, but he can get me access. TJ says, I stopped watching it years ago. Yeah, watching the U.S. news is it's nuts. Just absolutely crazy. So I have to translate something real quickly. Ask your questions and stuff. Well, I can't believe we're going without a break, and I've heard nothing about my dinner. I'm not actually that hungry, but at some point it's like, shouldn't I be eating at some point? I don't know. Try to get an update on this volcano, and unfortunately I have to type this all in. Interessante. Oh, very cool. Everybody still there? Oh, there we go. Oh. Now the explanation of the of the message came through. So now I know what's going on. Look people up. Sometimes people send me messages like something's going on, and there we go. TJ, are you still there? So my wife just said that they don't have a lot of options, but they have cast iron skillets at Curacao. It's like $50 or more. It was not cheap, she said, and they didn't have a big selection, but they did have them, and there's Curacaos all over. So stop by Curacao and see if you can find it there. It might be okay. One thing about living in Nicaragua, you're constantly sent things and are like, I have to look up the biography of this person to figure out who everybody's talking about. Because it's all history and stuff that, if you didn't grow up here, especially if you grew up in like the US, like you don't learn any of the history. Not that you would, like I'm not saying you should, for like individual people, just like if you're not from the US, knowing who John Adams is like, why would I know that, right? But here, like those things happen all the time when you live here and you're like, what's going on? I want to get there when I move there. Yeah, you'll be able to get them. It's going to be expensive and it's a little bit hard to find, but sounds like you can get it. All right. Viva Nicaragua! Hey Tito, how's it going? We're after 9 o'clock. I'm going to be wrapping up here in a minute. We're over 3 hours. That's actually longer than I was planning on going today. We've had a good run today. I got to get the editing done. I got to have dinner. I got to figure out what's going on with this news that just came through, which is cool. People who want to hang out and do stuff. I think we're going to call it a night there, just because I got a lot I got to get to. But be sure to tune in tomorrow. Remember, I'm going to put these in the chat. So YouTube.com. A lot of you I know go to these, but if you have not gone to Drive Warp, this is my channel where it stopped typing. There we go. Where I put a camera in a car and travel around different places, and it's not all Nicaragua based, but there's a lot of Josh, yes, Morro Potente, glad you liked it. Is Matagalpa still my favorite city other than Leon? It is my favorite city more than Leon, honestly. But yes, Matagalpa is still my favorite. Leon, because of the people that I know here, like I wouldn't give up my friends, and I like being close to the beach. But Matagalpa, as a city goes, is definitely my favorite. The way it looks, the weather, all that stuff, it's just really good. So Drive Warp is these, definitely like cool driving shots. I really enjoy it. Like a lot of times it's music. It's just chill and can see the country in interesting ways, or other countries. And then Tito, yes, I do like Casillo quite a bit. I love Casillo. There's a new Casillo place right by me that I'm going to film sometime soon, partially because I need to go get Casillos. I haven't had one nearby until just like weeks ago it opened. Normally I go out to Nagarote and get them, and I love Nagarote, but it's a little bit far to go for food. Just had found it at AM/PM here in town, right? Because you're in San Juan del Sur. Really like the Irish Red. That one is really good. Great with a habanero maduro. Yeah. Oh yeah. A habano. Habano maduro. Yes. I do like that one. I really like the 500 Nights. Like, that one's really good. My wife's Lado Oscuro. I mean, it's probably my favorite Lado Oscuro, but I don't want it all the time. She gets it every time. She walks in, they've already poured it for her. And then my other channel that's going to be getting stuff tomorrow. So Drive Warp is going to get this amazing drive out to Tesoro. You definitely want to watch that in the morning and kind of whet your appetite for what we're going to be doing. And then Nicaragua 360 is our channel where we do 360-degree views. You can totally watch it on a phone or computer, and you can look around. It's really neat. But if you got a headset, like a VR headset, it is so cool. And we do everything in 8K now. So definitely, if you can, check that out. And please subscribe to those channels. We're working really hard to get those somewhere. They're very small channels, but they provide a really good additional bit of content to my vlog. Only had the Red and Pale there in town. That's weird. Normally the Lado Oscuro is the first one they get, and then like Buena Cara is very popular, which is actually made from grapes. And then once you watch those will come out during the day. They're already uploaded. They're already scheduled. The one is going to show you the drive. The other is going to show you the beach, so you can see what the beach like location is that we're going to be filming. And then the vlog is going to take place on Tesoro. And it's a nice long vlog tomorrow. And there's also an extra vlog that's coming out in the morning. That one's a bit more tools on how to live here, and a little bit of me continuing to rant about the stupidity around the whole vaccine fiasco and all the people asking for proof when obviously the proof is provided in the thing itself. Thanks, Patricia. I will tell the dogs that you said good night. Tell your dogs that my dogs said to tell them woof, woof, good night as well. And thanks for joining me, everyone. As always, have a good night. Thank you so much for your support and your help and just hanging out on the live stream. And as far as I know, we're doing it next week. I don't know of any reason we wouldn't be. And join us on the show tomorrow. Don't forget to watch today's show if you haven't already seen it. And have a good night.